Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day. Marcus, what's up? How are you?
Great.
Thanks for coming, man.
1 year to the date. I
Yeah?
think we were supposed to do this last year right when the quarantine hit. It
Right.
was kind of good because it was April 1st that I called. It was new.
Yeah.
I remember because Melanie was yelling at me. She's like, "Have you called Joe and tell him we're not going to be making it out there? We're not going to be able to make it out there." I was like, I was putting it off. I was like, bro, I'll get out there. And then they did the lockdown. So almost to the day.
It was spicy a year ago. No one knew what was happening.
It's crazy, right?
It was a little weird.
It was.
But now it's like, nobody's worried anymore.
Well,
Except
we
California
learned
people.
fast.
Yeah.
Our people. They pick stuff up quick. I mean, when we suffer together, then there'll always be those that are trying to figure out ways to get us back to where we're supposed to be. And that just took some time.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Texas did a much better job of relaxing once the pandemic hit, where people just, for some folks it's very dangerous, but it seemed like Texas did a much better job of just going like, wait a minute, why is everybody freaking out over this?
Yeah.
Like we can open things up.
Big place, too.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with it because in the outlying towns, and there's a lot of things that got shut down, and there's some things aren't. Like money never got shut down. So that's everything that people still had to go out. And they talk about that herd immunity. Mm-hmm. Because with the families, they bunch up with them, you get sick, locked down, get the antibodies. But the more spread out, in some of the towns, they didn't even get it.
Right.
And then in the big cities, it would show up. But then just kind of common sense, that whole, we're going to get through this, and always look for the better day. I mean, you can sit there and become a victim of being a victim and fear. Like, I'm so scared to go out because it might be out there. Well, yeah, of course it is. Everything's out there.
That's what a lot of people are like in L.A. In
Yeah.
L.A., there's a tangible feel.
You can feel it.
Yeah, it's in the air.
It's a real thing.
It's real fear.
At the fights, when you're standing there, you can feel that.
Yeah.
You can feel the presence of death when it shows up. Everything knows if something badder than it was just walked in the room, right? When we're at the fights, you can feel that when they walk in.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
No, you can. That's the one energy that, like, right now we've been doing fights with no audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's real weird.
I remember I texted you. I was like, how is that? Is
It's
that even
wild. If you want to go to one, there's one this weekend in Vegas. It's the heavyweight championship. Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. And it's probably one of the last ones we do without an audience. It's pretty fucking wild.
What are the fighters saying?
Some of them love it. It's less distractions. It's quicker for them to get into the octagon. Once they arrive there, they just warm up, and then they go in there. They don't have to get to the arena like early in the day and stay there all day. It's a different vibe, but it's great. Like, you know what I compare it to? The difference between a concert where you're like at a filled arena with a rock band, electric guitars, versus a small acoustic show.
Yeah.
That's kind of the
Or
difference.
like out behind the schoolhouse fighting as opposed to,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Because the
Yeah.
anticipation of it, once that punch goes, if not a lot of people are looking, that's the hardest part about being a fighter, I would imagine. Everyone's watching you do it.
For some folks, they like it, though. Some folks perform better when people are watching.
That's what makes them special,
Yeah,
right?
they want to hear the roar of the crowd.
Yeah.
And some guys would rather just stay calm and just focus on the task at hand and not have any distractions.
So what is that? What separates fighters like that?
It's interesting. It's like it's not whether or not they're good. 'Cause
No, yeah.
there's great fighters that like both things. There's great fighters that love the roar of the crowd, and there's great fighters that they're like, I don't give a fuck. I don't need a crowd. Let's go in a room. I don't give a fuck.
So a brawler as opposed to somebody who's been trained to fight.
I don't even think it's that.
Are those
I think
two different
it's-
things?
Yeah.
They are, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
A brawler versus someone's been trained to fight. The difference is, like, some people just love to fight and they don't even know how to do it.
Yeah, but they're good.
Yeah.
Whatever reason, man, they can get it on. And then there's some people who train to fight and they fight like they've been trained.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see the difference.
Yeah. Well, I think it's bold people, wild people, they tend to do well, especially if they're fighting against someone who's not technical, who's not smart. But there's people that are bold, but they temper it, and those people learn how to control it. And those are the most dangerous ones.
Fortune
Like,
favors the bold, right?
Yeah, but like guys like John Jones is a perfect example because he's very bold and wild, but he's also super smart and technical. Like, he tempers it. He takes his wildness and then he tempers it, and that's one of the things that makes him the greatest of all time is because he's figured out how to, like, take all the wild and like when he fought Shogun, he was 22 years old, was fighting for the title. He opens up the fight with a flying knee on a legend.
Right.
I mean, nobody does that. That's a wild move to do it for an opening move.
Have you talked to him about that? I was wondering. Yeah. I was like, so what happened that mid moment? You're just like, I'm gonna give it everything I got.
He just goes with the feeling. He just feels it and just goes. You know?
I've enjoyed watching him fight in his career too, especially when everyone takes a turn in some direction. I think he learned more from getting it taken away.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I think he did because he realized like these poor choices he's making outside of the octagon, outside of his career, they could ruin everything. I mean, he has this insane opportunity. I mean, he had a contract with Nike that went away. I mean, he had all these great things that went away. They took his title away. He was gone for a while. He couldn't compete for a while. And then he came back and then reestablished himself as who he is.
That's the greatest part about this country too, man. Forgive.
Yeah, that's a big thing that's missing today, right? With all this cancel culture bullshit. And some girl just got canceled for some fucking tweet she made when she was 17. Like now she's 27. She's an editor at Vogue or something like that. Is that what it is? Like, well, come on, man. You're 17. You're a fucking kid. You don't know what you're doing.
I've been offline for a little while. Is the cancel culture? Good. Okay, yeah. I'm just checking back in. Is that a group? Is there a leader who pushes? I don't know. Is that a bad question?
No, it's a perfect question.
I mean, I don't know.
You really don't know. That's
no,
why it's
I don't. That's what I'm
question.
asking. I'm like, who runs that?
Stay ignorant.
Okay,
keep away from it.
All right.
It's just people are being bullies, and you know what it is? It's like political correctness. Once it gets established that there's things that people want you to say and don't want you to say, then there's people that are going to be bullies. That when someone steps out of the line or when someone says something that's questionable, they're going to try to attack them. Yeah. And what it really is a bunch of like really shitty human beings that just want an excuse to go after someone. And they want to pretend they're doing it because they're morally outraged. But really, they're just shitty human beings without any empathy and without any forgiveness. That's what a lot of it is. And they find an opportunity to attack someone. And then there's also a lot of people that are bored. They don't have anything to do during this pandemic. Yeah. And they have mental health problems because they've been locked up inside their house and they're losing their job and they're losing their career. And then they just attack people. It's a lot of what it is. It's just social media shows some of the worst aspects of human beings.
Well, it's the collective consciousness of everybody, right?
Yeah.
If you see it on there, someone's thinking it.
Yeah.
And in a way, the cancel culture makes you earn what you said. If you said it, I mean, it's got to be both ways. You can be bullies because we know those. You and I grew up around them, I'm sure. If you're a fighter like I know you are, I had to do the same thing. It was for a reason.
Yeah.
Those of us who train hard enough, we get into the point where you kind of now I'm designed to train people from myself.
Right.
And with the cancel culture, it's like people ask me about my reputation. I was like, well, I earned mine. I mean, that's just how it is. So I guess it's making everybody atone for what they've been saying. There's
that, yeah, but there's also the lack of forgiveness.
Like, well, that's the internet.
Atoning you for what you're saying is fine, and I think we should all agree when we've made mistakes to recognize those mistakes and to also recognize that you're evolving. You know, when you're talking about someone, especially that girl who's 17, Jesus Christ, thank God there wasn't social media when I was 17.
Yeah, that's unbelievable they would do that to her. Because, I mean, that says you can't grow.
Exactly.
And we change probably, every 9 years, 10 years maybe, after we go through a cycle. And that was kind of baffling to me when they would bring something up that they did from high school. It was like, you drank beer in high school? Yeah. Didn't everybody else? I thought that was the point. And then you're like, well, I grew, I learned, and then now it's okay to change. I think you're supposed to.
I think it's also what social media is too. It's a new tool, and some people are abusing it. They don't know how to use it correctly, and there's no real established cultural rules as to how to use it correctly and how, and how to call people out when they're using it. They're being really shitty with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's growing like a family, right? It kind of starts out, and everyone, when you plug into that thing, it's like plugging into a virtual game.
Yeah.
So how good are you in that game?
Right.
Because you can they'll come at you from every angle. You can also turn the game off.
Yes.
And step away from it. Those people who they get nasty text messages or threads about, man, that could be somebody in a completely different, hell, they could be dead for all you know. Some people keep up with their social media threads from years ago, and they'll open that back up and read it and get pissed about it. I'm like, why would you even save that?
Exactly.
I mean, theoretically, it should probably erase every day because you start a new day every day. If you're dragging that old stuff in there, you're just going to keep being upset about it.
That's a good point. But they want to define you by things that you said 10 years ago. That's the idea behind it, I guess.
It's going to be tough.
It's fucking stupid. It's stupid. It's just the problem is it's still written down, so it still looks like you just said it.
Yeah, of course. No, that's my point.
Yeah.
It's like look what he says. Like, no, man, that's
Right.
way past that.
Yeah, if someone remembers something you said in high school, you remember call that girl a cunt? Like, did I? I was drinking. I don't remember.
Right.
But if it's written down somewhere, it's almost like you said it yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
Not true statement. How do you get past that one, right? I mean, that's where you. That's
a good question.
Like, I apologize for that back in the day. And,
That's a good question. How do we get past that? That's the problem with things being documented.
Yeah.
You know, you don't accept a person for who they are now. You want to pretend that they are who they were when they were 15 or whatever.
Sure. Well, that's when you're not supposed to judge somebody, really. Kind of on a lot of stuff. Life's hard. Everyone's reality is their own. It's perfect when you're by yourself, right? When you wake up in the morning, perfect reality. Me too. I get up, look in the mirror, everything's good.
Yeah.
As soon as you walk out and run into somebody else's reality, whatever they're swinging, if you ain't ready for it,
It's true.
it'll hit you.
Yeah.
And you put yourself in positions to deal with different realities. And a lot of times people think it's, oh, look, these guys they're doing this, they're tough and stuff, and you go in. If you're not ready for that, it's
Right.
not saying you can't be ready for it, but training is everything.
Yeah.
Every emotion that you have that you're born with is raw. You spend your entire life training each one of them. And I don't care how old you are. If you get into a situation for the first time, you'll always react like a child because you just hadn't been trained in that kind of environment for that emotion. Love, hate, rage, truth, love, all that stuff.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I think is very important for people, too, is to do new things. So they experience the feeling of being a beginner again.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. I love it.
Walking into the gym as a white belt in that new class, right? Just kind of, man, I know enough to where I should perform, but I don't want to get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing, I think, for people in the martial science and like jiu-jitsu. They don't want to go in. They think the minute you walk in there that it's like an octagon, you're just going to get your ass handed to you. They don't realize that just show up, and then we'll start from what you don't know.
Yeah, they're gonna treat you like a beginner, and they're gonna be kind to you.
That's why they're called teeth. I mean, the good ones, you'll get hooked like that.
Yeah, it's just a matter of having the courage to be a beginner, and that's where a lot of people, they just don't know how to humble themselves like that.
Ego.
Yeah,
That's one of the ones you got to get past.
Sure.
Pride. The 7 virtues and the 7 sins, right?
Yeah.
Those two things run together. That's why if you hook up with a girl who runs on the same sin you do and likes to exploit it, it's going to be one hell of a ride.
Always
If
true.
you marry your opposite, your kids will probably be perfect.
Yeah.
Right? There'll be a splice.
Right, a blend.
Yeah, you'll have both teachers too.
Yeah.
But if you kind of one train, one party, woof.
Yeah, my wife is nothing like me, thank
No,
God.
absolutely, 100%
Yeah.
me too.
That's how it works,
It is,
right?
yeah.
That's how it works. I don't want to marry someone like me. That's crazy.
They wouldn't want to marry. Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Like, you got to be that opposite. When they do, marriage is funny. The stuff that you figure out going through it, because you figure out the differences. Mm-hmm. I never knew that we could be sitting somewhere and listening to somebody talk, and what we hear the same sentence, but what they interpret and what we interpret are two different things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
Like you and I
yeah.
could be having a conversation, and everyone will understand it, but we're talking about something different.
Yeah.
And when I figured that out, I was talking to the wife one day. We're at the vet, and there was a pamphlet on there, had some babies and some puppies, and it said, protect them from danger, protect them for life. And I was kind of in a grumpy mood anyway, and I was like, hey, what does that mean to you? She's like, just what it says, protect them from danger, protect them for life. And I was like, right. But eventually, if I always protect them from danger, I'll always have to protect them for their life. There's got to be a transition to when you kind of turn it around and you're pushing them back out to earn their spot. And then Melanie and I were getting some arguments about something, and I realized like if it goes past a couple of different conversations, that we're saying the same thing just differently.
Right.
And I'll just back up, and I kind of stop, talking just to let her calm down. But it's the communication. I'd say like our relationship's like the Weather Channel, constant updates. I mean, tell me what you're thinking. Guys, we stuck in the same path, and if, for whatever reason they shift off of it, that's kind of the Lord's way of saying, I'm teaching you something.
What's also, I don't think you and I are ever going to understand how a woman feels. There's no way.
That's
can't
by
imagine.
design.
Yeah, I guess.
The universe
nature,
is awful in its infinite wisdom, designed it that way.
There's no way you can. You can guess, but that's what it is. It's a lot of guesswork. Or when women,
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
With guys like us, we train for everything.
Right.
I mean, train to see it and when it walks in to deal with it,
Yeah.
if need be. And she'll walk in sometimes, and I don't even know what. I'm like, what?
Yeah, they're coming at things from a totally different angle.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, they're making all the people inside their bodies. Imagine that. Just imagine being a person who makes human beings in your body.
Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy.
So the reason our muscles on the outside of our fat is because we take pain on the outside. Like if you see a woman, and you reverse us, their muscles on the inside of their fat. If a woman's had 9 babies, she's a UFC champion. I mean, she could take a beat down, right?
Right, the amount of punishment.
Bro, I mean, I watched my wife give birth to our kids, and I was like, honey, you're the toughest thing I ever seen. You know, back in the day when they split, you know, man and woman standing for the first time, and guys like, which one of y'all want to have to go through this? I'm going to show you what it's like. The dude was like, I'll be outside working in the garden, man. I'll take care of everything. Exactly. There ain't no way I'm doing that.
Yeah, if a baby came through your dick and
Can you
made
believe
your dick
that?
explode and they had to sew it back up every time, there'd be 4 people on the planet.
Bro, after a bunch of surgeries, I had to take Vicodin. And, man, that stuff would stop you up, feel like your pack's a Volkswagen out the backside. And just going through that, I was crying.
Yeah, the Vicodin, the all that stuff, the painkillers and the constipation, man. That's a weird one, right?
It's like a joke to make sure you don't stay on it that long, I think.
That joke
teaches you a
doesn't
lesson.
work.
Like, yeah, a couple
Teach
lessons.
you a lesson, but some people didn't get that lesson.
I know. I think it ranges for everybody. I mean, I had a bunch of surgeries, so I never touched anything before I got in. I wasn't allowed to. So it's comical going through some of that stuff.
What is it like to have a movie about one of the worst experiences of your life?
Yes. Thank you for asking it like that.
Yeah.
No one ever has. It's an honor to do that, to be a part of that. And it's funny because people are like, hey, they made a movie and the books and it was great. And I was like, man, it's about me getting my ass whipped. As a fighter and a warrior, those are usually the stories you don't want out. Right? So I'm in the loss column. I carry a lot of weight, 19 promises. I never forget it. So I'll walk around, I always remind myself I could run into somebody who knows or loved one of them or one of their family members. So I'll always carry myself a certain way I have to. That was the deal I made to get me off the mountain. People ask me who my heroes are. Everybody who had to come fetch me out of hell. I was in there pretty deep. And the way that lined out, it's a great story if you want to hear. I mean, the whole process.
I would love to hear it.
It's funny on the way up here. I was like, man, how's this interview going to go? And I was watching Joe Dirt last night. I was like, let's do it like that. You want to start from the beginning? Bro, I'll tell you some stuff you can't believe.
I'm glad you said let's start it off with whiskey.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that, I'm like, this is going to go great.
It is.
Yeah.
I only drink whiskey with my friends. And you know the reason we say that is because the things that come out when you drink whiskey.
Yeah.
So I've been looking forward to this. We've been friends for a while. I thought we should have a good time with it.
100%. Yeah. You know, I watched the movie again last night. I watched it yesterday just to prepare myself. And
I haven't seen it. I never watched it all the way through. I know the director's cut. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, no. Yeah.
So it was
I can imagine.
It was something to back it up to the book and how that all happened. Or you back it up to the military, wherever you want to start. We can go all different directions with it, but I was in the hospital. So when I got back, I was in the hospital for a while, and then I went back into the teams and started doing another workup for deployment, and then in between that, I was getting called to the boss's house. I've always been watched over on high ground. That was a blessing. Because so many of our guys died, and we had a fallen angel. When you have a fallen angel, y'all always hear about it. Like normally if SEALs die or something, it's on the bottom of the ticker or only the family members here. But we had a fallen angel, which means we have an aircraft going down. And I didn't know about it, actually, when the mission started because everyone who knew about our operation was on the helicopter. That's why I was out there for so long. And I remember I just got out of the hospital and I was doing physical therapy at the team, and they called me up and they said, "Hey, we're going to declassify part of this operation, and we're going to put it out into a book." And I was like, "Okay." I didn't know what that meant. Well, then they pulled me back up to the head sheds where we had this big meeting, and they assigned to me I was privileged enough to have the best lawyers, the best writers. Like I interviewed with everybody until I found a fit. Like I got to travel around. Like when Patrick and I met, he came out to the house. My mother fell in love with him. So that's how we knew he was and I had to live with him. So I would actually wake up on Sunday or Monday morning and go into work, do a workup, fixing to deploy. And then on Fridays, I'd have to fly to Cape Cod, and I would sit with Patrick and tell him the story. And then Sunday night, I'd fly back.
Patrick is the guy you wrote.
Patrick Robinson, yeah.
He's the guy you wrote the
He
book
was, yeah.
with.
Because my name wasn't in the book. It wasn't supposed to be anything like that. I was still operational. And then I deployed back to Iraq in 06 and 07. I ripped Jocko out. I know you met him.
Love Jocko.
Great guy.
And he loves you.
Man, he was my one of my bosses.
He got so excited when he heard you were coming on. He texted me and we went back and forth.
He's something. I called him. He's just what you see is what you get.
He's
you ever notice his face looks like it could perfectly fit in a Spartan helmet?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Like he's always. I mean, he's the man when it comes to leadership.
Break glass.
That's
in
it.
case of war.
We have those guys.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
real. I know you've met some of them.
Yeah, we need those guys.
They exist. They're
Yes.
terrifying.
I'm so happy they're real.
Yeah, they're real.
Yeah. And Jocko is he's the archetype.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the reason why he was over Chris and Michael and Mark. If you noticed in the SEAL teams, all of our Medal of Honor guys are named Michael. You ever notice that?
No.
Yeah. Those are called Mark Angels. They always get the Medal of Honor. You get a Mark and a Michael running together in the SEAL team, something bad's it's going to go down. So we joke about that. But when the book came out, I was in Iraq. I remember the lawyers and everybody would write me emails and like, please don't die. And I was like, well, I'll try not to, thanks.
Jesus Christ.
So I got hurt in Iraq again. And when I got back, they positioned me out of the SEAL teams, and then they kind of rewrote that part, put my name in it. My job was to go around and tell you about your boys and what they did and how hard they fought and they died. And that was the greatest job. It was the hardest job I ever had to do. Because I remember when they pulled me offline as an operator. And the admiral was sitting there telling me, he's like, son, you're going to do more for the SEAL teams than you ever did in combat. And that was, I thought that was kind of an insult. I was like, wait, what do you mean?
Right.
I was like, do I need to work out harder? Do I need to? He's like, no, this is what you need to do. So I did that. And I traveled around and I told you guys. And then the movie, Hollywood came calling. So I got stationed to live there. They actually sat me down and introduced me to all the directors, and we had to find the fit. And then once Pete and I linked up for the first time, rest is kind of...
I mean, Peter Berg.
Yeah, Peter Berg.
God damn, he nailed it.
Man.
I know you haven't seen it because you've seen the director's cut.
Right, yeah.
But he fucking nailed it. That guy's a hell of a director. It just, there was no bullshit in that movie. There's a certain amount of bullshit, and I don't know if there's any bullshit in terms of like the reality of the experience versus the film version of it, but there was no gloss to that film.
So the way I'll talk about when I met Pete for the first time. So I got pulled up to L.A. to interview all of them. I was traveling around, just getting to meet everybody. Oliver Stone, I sat down in front of him. I mean, they went through me through the guy. I had lunch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I remember meeting him because I wanted to. He was a veteran, right?
Yeah.
And
I love that guy.
the lawyer that I got assigned to, he was great. Alan Schwartz is his name. And for those, have you ever seen Spaceballs?
Yes.
Okay. The Schwartz in Spaceballs?
Yeah.
It's named after him. So he's Mel Brooks's attorney. This is real.
That's crazy.
This is crazy. That was one of the coolest things where I got to meet him. And I was like, wait a minute, you're the Schwartz? He's like, yeah. So I got like assigned to him, and then my literary agent was this guy named Ed Victor. He's since passed, but he was great because he was a British guy, tall, skinny, and he would wear the sweaters tied around his neck and the white and black wingtips. Dressed to the nines, had that awesome accent, and he would tell me, he's like, Marcus, darling, I'm the SEAL in this world, just in this environment. Just let me take care of this. What are you saying to me?
How dare he?
Yeah, and I just kind of like, roger that. Because if you're the resident expert at something, I'll always drop in right beside you. So I was traveling around, and I'd been in LA for a couple of days, and I was supposed to get back to the base. And they were like, wait, there's one more guy who wants to meet you. His name's Peter Berg. And I didn't register in my head. I couldn't put the name to it. He's been around forever. He's down on the set filming a movie called Hancock with Will Smith. And I was supposed to get on my plane, but we went late and missed my flight. He's like, just go down there and see him. And I was like, all right. So we drive down there, and he's sitting in his chair, and then there's a train scene. So there was this huge train, and Will's standing. I got to meet him. It was pretty cool. And Pete walks up, Peter Berg. He's like, hey, let's take a walk. I was like, all right. And we sat down on this park bench overlooking the water. He's like, this is what I think of this. This is what I want to do. And he kind of shot me straight. He's like, before I say anything else, I want to show you a movie that I just filmed. And I want you to watch it. So I got to go to the theater and watch this movie. And then the next day, it was his attention to detail. He like focused on the stuff that you would normally miss, which makes it kind of realistic. And I was like, okay, it's yours. I was like, know this, if you screw this up, if you do anything to dishonor any of my friends, I'll kill you. And he didn't know what to do about that. And I mean, the look on his face, because I shook his hand, and I had his hand, and I was like, okay, here's the deal. It's yours if you want it. But if you screw it up, I'll have to, nothing personal.
For real.
And right when that happened, I mean, he took it. We made him go to all of our the door was open for him because it was an assignment. Everything else, the books and the movies and everything, they were shut down, except for this one. So when the Navy's got your back, and the SEAL teams, man, that's how that works. So we sent him overseas. He had to go live with. I mean, the guy went through some stuff. He came back early and didn't tell me about it because some of the stuff he saw. And I was like, hey, it's real, right? It's real. And he's like, that's all I needed to see to change how I feel. I was like, okay, well, let's do this, man. And then it started.
Oh, so he went overseas and experienced. What did he experience?
They embedded him with a SEAL platoon.
Oh, Jesus.
He got to see them guys and how it's a really cool story. I'll let him tell it because of what he got to see and what he got to do. And some of the guys called me from the deployment. And they were like, hey, we put Pete through the ringer. I was like, good. Because of what he was stepping into. And, I mean, to this day, we're still best buddies. I talked to his son yesterday. He kind of comes over and we do, like, he teaches my kids some things and I teach his kids some things. And it's just, everywhere I go, I was always taught to make a friend over money, right? Because that's the best cash you can have as a friend. And, getting to live with him and experience that Hollywood lifestyle was amazing. I remember showing up at his house the first day. I was like, man, why does this place look so familiar? He's like, OJ's house is right. He lives in Brentwood. He's like, OJ's house is right there. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And then it just got crazy from there. First time he took me out, I mean, those are great stories.
Wow. Peter's an interesting guy. He's a director that you can tell when you watch his movies, like, that motherfucker cares. Like, he's not just pumping out some homogenized, pasteurized product that he thinks that will sell well. Like, there's a piece of him that gets into those movies. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think what happened when he had to film Lone, we blanketed the set with team guys. He had to live with us. I mean, we'd go over there's some of the guys would show up at his house in the middle of the night, grab him out of bed, spray him with bear mace, throw him in the pool, take all the liquor in his bar, and leave. That's what he has to deal with. I mean, you got buddies now in our community. You know what that's like.
Yes,
I mean, they just show up and be like,
Savages.
hey,
I
absolutely.
love it. That you need that. You need that. The people that don't understand.
It's because we protect you like no other. I mean, we're hard and everything, but it's always out of love, right?
Well, there needs to be people like you out there. And people that don't understand that, there's people that are worried about all these different transgressions and microaggressions and all the bullshit in the world. You don't understand. Like, the only way you get to have the kind of freedom where you're concerned with microaggressions is if you have SEALs. That's the only way. It's the only way. If you have hard people. There's a Winston Churchill? Who's the guy that made that quote about the reason why people sleep well at night is because hard men are out there? It's a famous quote, but it couldn't be more accurate. I think it's a Winston Churchill.
Willing to die if necessary, protecting the blanket of freedom that you sleep under.
Yes,
Stand on the wall.
There's there's that old expression that hard times make hard men. Hard men make easy times make soft men make hard times.
Right.
And there's this cycle, and we are in the worst part of that cycle right now. What the Hindus call the Kali Yuga. And this situation we're in now is like we've had all these blanket protections. We've had all this softness, and we've had people like you out there protecting us from the worst aspects of human nature. And then because of that, people get soft and uncomfortable, and then they look for all these weird reasons why people are evil and people are bad. They don't understand real evil. They don't get it. They've never experienced what you've experienced. And it's my belief that only people like you that have stared into the heart of evil, that have stared into the heart of darkness, that have been there, that have lost brothers and got as close to a human being as close to you can to losing your own life and come back. You can tell people what the fuck is really going on when people are at their worst. We are at our worst. We are territorial primates. And we've always been this way. At our best, we are brothers and lovers and family and comrades and we unite each other. At our worst, we're divisive and we're looking to diminish people and dismiss people. At our best, we're looking to build people up and we're looking to help people. And these lessons they're so wide. It's so hard to gather up all the information to make a good assessment of what it means to be a person. But one of the lessons, one of the most important pieces of information, what it means to be a person, is the people that have gone through the worst, and the worst is war.
The most dangerous thing down here is an undisciplined human mind.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
And the only way you can know true happiness is if you know true pain. And we do cycle through life. That's why the history books are there. It shows every one of those perpetual cycles. I think there's 4 of them. And in order for someone who had to go through something so hard to obtain something so great to enjoy it, then you'd want to pass that down. Well, that next gen will never understand it. They just don't. And then that one cycle feeds the other until as we transfer through time, look at the atrocities we've done to each other. Yeah, we are family. You go back far enough, there weren't that many of us. And just kind of branched out. And we populated this place. You ever run across anybody where you just automatically like them? Like, hey, man, we're buddies. Because you probably can. Like, we're family.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are opposite of your magnet. Like, you could tell. And when they come in swinging something, it all depends on where they're from, what they're going through. And as we go through our life and we go through those hard times, it's incumbent upon us to look back into our hard times to understand what somebody at a certain age is going through. Age is rank. Can't get ahead of it, can't get below it. You can study something just like in school. If you're a freshman, study some senior stuff, but you're still going to have to go through the class. Like with the millennials, they have the iPhone. Like they can touch a picture on that screen and it'll show up to the door. That sounds made up, right? It just does. They have way too much information and not enough life experience. And that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing because life will teach that. Some people get consumed by certain things and go down certain rabbit holes and can't get out of it. But it's always important to remember, we have a saying in the family, don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. Like, man, you can get wrapped up some stuff that'll consume you. And if you're always wrapped up about it, that means you're not supposed to be getting all worked up about it. It's designed to keep you like in a game. It's just to hold you in that one thing.
Yeah.
While everyone else keeps moving.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah. It's like a game of life. Imagine when you come in here dying. The minute you walk, the minute you're delivered on your back, butt naked, you're dying. So you actually learn how to live while you're dying down here. And in that are all the emotions that you're training. So before you came down here, imagine you wrote your story out. Would it all be good times? No, of course not. Man, you want challenges and everything in between. The only way you can, like I said, you can appreciate your hard times is when you've had the good ones.
The only way.
That's it. We don't have bad ones. There's just nothing you've been trained for.
Right. Yeah. That's my feeling about LA. The weather's too good.
It is. It's so good.
You've won the weather lottery. You don't understand.
Man.
I grew up in Boston, and it's cold as fuck for 5 months out of the year. And if you don't, I appreciate sunny days. Like people, one time I went hunting with my friend Steve Ranella, and we went to Prince of Wales in Alaska, and it was raining every day, all day long. Like you're always wet.
Yeah.
The sleeping bag's wet, your clothes are wet, everything's wet. It's the rainiest place in North America, maybe on Earth. And when I came back home, I was in LA and the sun was shining and I took a hot shower and it was just like, man, and I called him up. I go, dude, I have never been this happy. I've never been so happy just to experience sun. And I realized like the only reason I'm so happy is because I experienced rain for 5-6 days in a row. Like you don't experience that feeling of like relief unless you've experienced the feeling of being under the gun of something, under the pressure of, under the feeling of never getting warm, always being cold, always shivering, always being soaked. You don't appreciate it. And so in LA, everybody's like it's constantly sunny.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
Like you need cold weather. You need rain. You need all those things. We need to see everything. And then with human beings, they need sorrow. They need sadness. They need happiness. They need anger. They need enemies. They need lovers. They need friends. We need the whole thing to be able to figure it out. There's lessons.
Absolutely, 100%. And I was sitting down with one of the elders in the family the other day during the quarantine. Beautiful day. We just sat on the front porch in rocking chairs enjoying it. Then the next day it was storming. And I kind of looked over at him. I was like, did you order this up? He's like, well, you can't have a perfect day every day because somebody else won't have one. So the grandmother loves the storms, the rain. I do too. I love it when the seasons change and the cold weather, and that's the best part about having them. And then you have the beach bunny. It's like Mel's a beach bunny, and she loves the sunny weather. But if she loves me, then she has to love that part too. So you learn to appreciate each one of those for what they are, because one thing has to feed the other.
Yeah, or you get Seattle, where
That's
I want to
different.
talk to people in Seattle. I'm like, you got to get out.
Man, it rains every
It's
day.
too much.
Bro.
This ain't good. Get
Man,
out.
We do
You're
our
all
cold
depressed.
weather. Yeah, we do our cold weather training up there.
Oh, yeah?
in the Puget Sound.
Oh,
That's where I do our cold weather diving. It's some of the hardest stuff I ever had to do. And then we would get a chance to go into Seattle. We catch the ferry and go into Seattle. And it was always raining, like, all the time. It was always cold. It's beautiful out there, but it's always miserable. It's like where people are always unhappy. If you don't have some of the sun in your life, you kind of...
But then again, those people make some of the most interesting music.
Yep.
Like, look at Nirvana. That came out of that pain.
It comes out of that whole environment, feeds itself.
Yeah.
Best music ever is when we were growing up in the 90s. I mean, that hip-hop came on, then you had the grunge, and it was kind of all of our generations melding together. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just... When I look back at what we had to go, because we're hybrids. We're a little bit of the old, a little bit of the new. We have no tech, and then we got the tech. So Gen X, right? You sit right at the beginning of that, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So as we made that transition over, I mean, look at the mistakes we made with the first camera phones. and getting that tech. Back then, you had to remember every phone number. There wasn't the names and putting it in alphabetical order for you and all that stuff like that. So when we see our kids with their tech, I'm like, well, so maybe I should hold that back from them. And I'm like, well, they got to have it. But then I'm going to teach them a little bit of how to live off the land in case they lose it. So all that stuff is a tool. As they progress through their age, I'll hold on to something, and then sometimes I'll give it to them, and then see what they do with it. I remember the first time I saw one of those $400 Nintendo Switches on the ground. I was like, what is this? I was like, who am I going to get mad at? The 45-year-old who gave it to the kid who put it on the ground, or the kid who didn't understand it when he got it?
Yeah.
So I learned more from them than I do, from everybody else. It's funny. It's how you open yourself up.
It's almost like the mistakes have to be made so that people correct. It's like there's no way to get through it smooth where the mistakes aren't made. The mistakes have to be made. Like, all the dumb shit has to be done. There's no way. You don't just figure it out and just do the right thing every time and move through life like an enlightened being. Like, you have to fuck up.
Yeah, well, you'd be an asshole then.
Yeah, you'd be Dr. Manhattan.
I'm like, right, really?
Someone who
Come
just
on,
gets
man.
it.
Dude.
Oh.
In Hollywood, they call them mistakes. You get to redo them.
Yes.
And in the civilian world, we call them mistakes.
Yeah.
So if you think about it like that, with us in the SEAL teams, if you're not trying to get away with something, you ain't trying. But the minute you get busted, you fess up. Like,
Right.
oh yeah, sure. And then you take your licks, and then you go on about it. And that's how they. If you try to perpetuate it, or like where we're from, if you don't know something, be like, man, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. I'll go study that, and I'll come back at you. Let me think about it. We're always taught to receive, reflect, respond. Receive, reflect, respond, right? Don't run to your death. There's plenty of time to get into something just to see what this chess game is. And you hear those little phrases over life, and they mean something, but they don't mean at that time. You didn't get it, right? It's kind of like later in life.
Right.
From 0 to 40, you just have an opinion. First 40 years of your life are supposed to be in darkness, man. You're walking around trying to figure out what you're not. And then when that kicks over, you see things. It's a switch. I think like on your birthday. And then you're like, oh, all right. And then you have to see the other side of it. Like, you run into yourself again.
Yeah.
Because the only easy day was yesterday. It's gone. Tomorrow, we don't have any idea if it's going to show up. You got one day down here, man. You wake up, you give it everything you got. Everything you got. Everything you're going to need for your day is probably around you. The further you go away from it, the further you're going away from your day. And don't try to carry one of them suckers. They're too heavy. Let the day carry you. And whatever you run into, man, run into it and give it all you got. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's not a thing. People made that word up just to make themselves feel better. It's how it is.
Yeah.
And then, like with us, we see when you open yourself up in every avenue that we have. I know there's people in here that they say stuff, and you're like, man, I understand that. I thought like that too. At that time, I get it. But this is why I went through this, and it made me see this part. And that the beautiful part is being able to acknowledge that and to talk about it. Not when we yell at the not yelling at them, but when you tell them something, they can just close off. I'm like, well, man, if you don't want to listen, then why are we even having a conversation? Because there was just two of us down here. We talk about everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. That's one of the best aspects about podcasts, especially when you add whiskey, is that people will talk about everything.
Yeah.
And then people are hearing this, and it's in an intimate way. They're hearing it in their ears. You know, a lot of them are running right now, listening on earbuds, or they're driving in their car on the way to work, and they're listening to the speaker by themselves, and they're a part of this conversation. You know? You know what I'm saying? Like,
isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is cool.
That's the best. I mean, there are some great things about tech. There's been some great inventions.
Yeah.
Air conditioning, tire, yoga pants, podcast, like where you
electric cars.
Yeah, electric cars.
There's a lot of shit that's cool. Listen, I'm a tech fan. I love tech. I just think you need to understand tissue. You understand cells,
understand yourself,
and souls, and bones, and you need to understand that things are fragile. You understand that bones break, and you know your consciousness can be taken away from you. All those things are real, and if you don't understand those, I think you're walking through life like a kid with a trust fund. You don't know how it was earned. You don't know who you are. You don't know why you're there. Like, we all know that trust fund kids, there's an expression that I've said before. It's not always true, but it's pretty true because it can be mitigated. But show me the son of a great man who's also a great man. It's very rare.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's hard. Because once your dad's carved an easy path for you, you don't become the same type of person. Like,
no. My father will always tell me he wasn't my friend. He's like, I'm not your friend, I'm your father. And I never understood why he said that to me until I had kids. And the reason being is because we do stupid things with our friends. I still do. I still have the same friends I've had since we were boys. And the reason I have them is because they possess a strength that I have as a weakness. So when we're together, I don't feel vulnerable. But you take one of them away, then you kind of notice that it's gone. And my father would always tell me, he's like, I'm going to give you two things throughout this life. I'm going to give you discipline. And through discipline, you're going to gain respect. Respect for yourself and respect for other people. Only time you ever lose your respect is when you throw your discipline away. Period. Mm. You're the only one that can lose it. Hey, look, my shoes aren't here for you to fill, but you can walk in them every now and again if you need it. And the reason I thought my father was the hardest man. You know, he would whip. Oh, man, it was like iron fist, right? My mother was a hippie, and my father was a bit of an outlaw. He was a chemical engineer, smartest man I ever met, but just the only time I get out of line, like with my mother, kind of like talking back, nothing bad, but it's a matriarchal family. Kind of the women run the show. So the only time I'd ever see him was when he'd tune me up for that. Mm. And then the hard lessons he learned on me as I was growing up, he just did them on purpose because he could put the pressure on and then take it off. And then when I ran into it in life, when it won't come off, I was ready.
Right.
So I say that to my kids now. I'm like, I'm not your damn friend. And it drives Melanie crazy. He's like, I'm your father, period. Don't ever forget that. And I was like, there's somebody who's got to keep you in check to make sure that, and it says it in the Bible, you ain't supposed to like your dad. It says it. You're loved. It does.
What does it say?
You're loved and beloved by your mother. Reason being is because there's probably 4 generations of men. I bet you loved your granddaddy. Probably a lot like him. Definitely like your great-grandfather. And you're probably the exact as your great-great-grandfather, right? 4 cycles. The warrior, the poet, the guy, I can't remember it off the top of my head. But your father, you're the next version of him. So he sees what's there. And no matter how hard the training comes down, and I'd be the first person to tell you my father was hard on me, but my wife loves the way I turned out. So I'm like, well, thanks, Pop. You can't, that's why it just says that. And when you get older, you kind of look back at after everything we had to go through. I'm like, man, if I had to go through that with him, it's because he saw something to make, and now I'm sitting right here.
It can't be comfortable.
No, it's not.
It can't be.
No, it's not. Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yes.
That's just plain. There are things down here at a certain age you can't negotiate with them. That's why pain exists.
Yeah.
That's why you got a butt with padding on it, right? My father never hit me on that spot. It was everywhere else, but it's depends on what you're raising. There are things down here that get sick, things that never get sick. There are things that I talk to vegetarians. I have a lot of friends that are vegetarians, and like, why don't you eat just? I was like, well, there are things down here that are predators that eat meat, just like humans. Humans and animals kind of coexist together. You can see yourself in nature. There are huge men that just eat plants, just like there are huge animals that just eat plants. Once you figure out kind of what your spirit is and how your body works, you can understand each other because there's nothing down here the same. Hell, everyone down here is as unique as your fingerprint. No one's the same color. No one's the same height. Everything is unique. It's just we want to put them into groups.
And it's almost like a trick because you're trying to emulate all the people that you see that are successful or that you admire around you, but you have to recognize that you are not them. And even if you emulate them as much as you can, as good as you can, as well as you can, as often as you can, you're still never going to be them.
Why would you want to be?
Why would you want to be?
No,
but in the beginning,
if you're going to become them, why would you need them to exist?
But you think you want to be them because they're successful. You see someone who's doing really well, you're like, I wish I was that guy. But then as time goes on, you realize, no, I'm me. Mm-hmm. And I just need to be my version of me, where some young guy coming up looks at me and says, I wish I was that guy. And then he's going to realize it. No, I don't want to be him. I want to be me. And you can learn lessons from those people that are successful, learn lessons from those people that have gone through the fire, learn lessons from the people that have made mistakes and have, and have learned from those mistakes. And this is how we progress. We don't learn all our lessons from our own life experiences. We learn a lot of them from watching other people fuck up, and we learn a lot of them from watching other people succeed.
Once you get good enough at laughing at your mess ups,
they're
not setbacks; they're kind of setups, right?
Yeah.
Because when you go in, you're untrained. I mean, if you like something, you just went in, you were good at it, then what's the point?
Right. Well, that's the problem with really talented people. We see that in fighting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really, really talented people. They often fall short because they're so talented they don't want to work hard. And then the determined little wolves. There's some guys that maybe they don't have the best genetic tools, or maybe they didn't have the best childhood or whatever it is, but they have determination and they figure out a way to become great.
Yeah. I tell them, like, yeah, you did. You're telling me you're born in the worst place in this country, in the hardest place, then that means that's how powerful you are.
Yeah.
Like diamonds are forged through pressure.
Yep.
Over time. When the blade is on the mill and the sparks are flying and that thing's screaming, it's going, what are you doing to me? Mm-hmm. I'm sharpening you.
Making a blade.
Even when it's getting sharpened, it has no idea what's going on. When I joined SEAL training, that's what one of the instructors told me. You know what we do here? We're going to forge you into a blade. We're going to get you really hot, really cold, and beat the mess out of you. Then we're going to repeat it until we make something that when we send you in with the rest of our guys, they're all like, each person around you is a stone. They're designed to polish you, sharpen you, or dull you out.
Yeah.
And you run around guys like us who are always sharp, then we sharpen each other. So to come in on us, like our hard days, we look forward to them now.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to go in there and carry that weight. And people are like, man, I can't believe you did that. I was like, well, obviously you didn't want to do it. If you weren't willing to carry it, I will. That'll be my spot. I don't want to be anything like you, but I want to be good enough to hang out with you, though. You know what I mean?
I love what you said, that some people will dull you out, too.
Absolutely.
That's true, too. And then that's something that some people need to understand is that whether you might be that person that's dulling out your friends.
Yep.
You need to realize that, too.
Yeah.
And get your shit together.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a friend that's doing that to you, and you're trying to carry them. And if they don't want to keep going, like you got to recognize that they're taking away from your resources.
It's tough with friends you've had over time. I've had to think about that one a lot. When they think they're dulling you, it's like, well, maybe you just got so sharp that they were part of it that helped you get that sharp.
Yes.
So don't ever forget that.
Yeah,
and
sometimes they just can't keep up.
When you relate to them, or they're past different.
Yeah.
And when you come back into their life, you're back in that spot. Be every man's equal. Mm-hmm. Bar, ballroom, bedroom, board, all that stuff. So it's easy. That's the ego part. And that's why our friends are there to remind us.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's a point of diminishing returns too. Like how much harder do you want to get? How much work do you want to get? And how much do you want to be a good friend? How much do you want to be a brother? Yeah. How much do you want to be a husband, a family member? And you can't ask everybody to walk your path.
No, it's yours.
Yeah.
Now, they'll walk with you, and then your friends are there when you go down that rabbit hole. They'll be like,
yeah,
I'll go down there with you. And then the deeper you go, some of them will peel out. That's all right, because you're going to have to run into them on the way back up, and you just pick them back up.
And we need them all, right? We need programmers, and we need SEALs.
Yeah.
We need everybody. We need comedians, and we need rock stars. We need poets, and we need writers, and we need guys who work ferries and dig trenches, and we need everybody. This is as a society, we're a weirdly balanced group of people.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
it's so great. It's so great.
It's great.
I mean, the difference, the best part about when I was doing the speaking thing, traveling around, was who I'd run into. I'm like, man, I didn't even know you existed. And I had the best time with them. I mean, just famously, right?
Yeah.
And we were two different worlds. I mean, we just are. And that's okay, because it's what's different about you that I appreciate. It's the uniqueness. I mean, I don't care what color your hair is, what you do. I mean, hey, man, that's the part I'm gravitating towards.
That's a good attitude. And the problem is a lot of people, they're so insecure that anybody that's different from them is the enemy. Anybody that's different from them is in opposition to them. And that's not really the case. It's a trap. It's a trap that your mind sets up.
Sure.
Your mind looks for familiarity, and it doesn't. All I care about a person is, are they nice? I try to look at it, and I know this is a very simplistic perspective, but I look at people in three groups: morons, assholes, and people you can hang out with. And in those three groups, there's a lot of different folks. There's a giant spectrum of people that I can hang out with. I don't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, Asian, African. I don't give a fuck if I can hang out with you, if you're cool, if we can talk. I can see your perspective. I see where you're coming from. I want to know who you are and how you got there. And then there's people that are they're just not smart, man, for whatever reason. Maybe they're not smart because they don't want to be smart, because they're scared of being smart. Maybe they're morons because someone did them bad and they never recovered. There's a lot of aspects to like what makes someone a moron. The same thing, what makes someone an asshole. Maybe they were abused. Maybe the system gave them a bad hand of cards. Maybe they get dealt a fucking terrible neighborhood with terrible relatives and terrible neighbors and terrible bullshit. And they just didn't have the tools, whether it's mental or spiritual or psychological, to overcome. And they're in this position where they're an asshole. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be an asshole. They can recover. We can all recover. We can all move. If you're alive, if you're breathing, if you can do anything, whether you can progress forward, you can get better. And if you can get better, then you can not be a moron. You can not be an asshole. And you could be someone that everybody can hang out with.
That's a true statement. I have people walk up to me and they're like, hey, you know this team guy so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah, I know him. I'm like, man, he's an asshole. I'm like, yeah, he is. Well, he's mine, though. Yes. He's magnificent at it, like you can't believe. And a lot of that stuff, like when it's their style. Like you have to get past that to understand, to appreciate what's burning inside of them, right? And it's a defensive mechanism. Yeah. With you, look at your vocabulary, your mental prowess, what you're capable of physically, everything that you've trained for. Who you've met, what each one of those have trained you for. So there will be people younger than us that haven't been through this that'll go into a situation and be like, "Guy was biggest dick, man, just blah, blah, this, that, and the other." With us, when we walk in there, I mean, I automatically assume I'm the weakest dude. And then I let everybody start talking. And I'll find out who knows what they think they know and they don't know it. Who wants to be the badass and who really isn't. Yeah. You know what I mean? So as we go through this, that's the best part, is taking off that black belt and putting the white one back on. Yeah. And then you walk in there and you're like, oh, okay. You know, let's see what's what. And then as it progresses, because they can only be an asshole up to a point, to where they run into somebody like, you know what I mean? And they're like,
have you ever seen videos where white belts pretend, or black belts rather,
all the time.
pretend to be
My
white
favorite
belts?
thing, all the time.
Yeah, there's funny videos online where a black belt will show up at a school and pretend to be a white belt and start rolling with people. Mm-hmm. And then you can see the people get super confused when they're purple belts or brown belts, and they start getting strangled.
Pisses them off. And it's actually the best teaching tool for the purple belt, brown belt rank, because like, I just got my ass whipped by a white belt. It can happen.
It's a problem with brown belts. It's a problem with black belts. It's a problem with belts. It's a problem with that system. Yeah. I remember I was a brown belt, and this dude choked me out. He was a blue belt. He got my back, and he just got me. He got me. And I tapped. He goes, "Did you really just fucking tap?" I go, "Yeah, man, you got me." He goes like, "Holy shit." I go, "It happens.
It happens, man.
It's going to happen to you. Keep going."
I got my ass turned inside out by a purple belt when I just got back. It's funny, right? That's what I thought, too.
It happens.
Like, dude, I mean, so much so that I almost wound up back in.
Yeah.
It was great. And he couldn't believe, he thought I'd given it to him, and I was like, "No, you actually did good, man."
Listen, some guys have a move, man. Whether it's an arm bar or a choke or a fucking crucifix, some guys have a move. And if you zig when you should have zagged, and they get to point B, and then there's point C, and D is tap, like, you might be in deep shit. I don't give a fuck who you are. And it happens.
Perfect chess. Yes. Like, they've been training this one move all week, and the setup. But you're not. It's that obscure one that you're not looking for. So you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, there's no way he knows this one." And
next thing you know,
isn't that great? Yeah. That's the best part about our world, is that you still go in there to get there's a chance that even those of us who have been around can get humbled. And what does that tell you?
Yeah, it's
that them suckers can learn too.
But that's so valuable. Those terrible moments where a guy taps you out like that, those are so valuable. They're so much better for you than the moments where you tap him out. If you tap some blue belt out, like, who gives a shit? But if he taps you out, like, man, you should be thanking your lucky stars because you got a real good lesson. You got a lesson that if you don't protect your neck, if you fuck up, you go into a situation where you're not defensive enough and you get caught, that's so valuable. And that's with everything in life, with relationships, with friendships, with business situations, everything.
That's the best way I've heard that explained. Like, that mat work is like life.
Yeah.
Like a minute, I think I got it figured out. I get choked out by something I didn't even see coming up.
And it's good. Those moments. I've had moments where I just feel like such a fucking loser. I just feel like such a piece of shit. But those are my best moments because they gave me something. They gave me something that victory never gave me. They gave me something where I was like, where I realized that, you know, you're not always going to win, and you don't want to win always. You don't want to. Even a guy who wins always, like a guy like Floyd Mayweather, you tell me that guy didn't have dark moments in the gym. You tell me that guy
every day.
The
more his numbers, I love that man. Dude, that family. The more
Yes.
his numbers went up, and everyone bitches about how he fights. He's like, oh, he sits back. It's a fight.
He's the smartest man in boxing.
I mean,
Smartest man in boxing, 50-0, 49 in Conor McGregor. That's what I say. He's not really 50-0. 49 in Conor McGregor, but the guy's been hit hard 4 times in his whole fucking career. He's the GOAT.
come on.
He's figured it out. All of his fights, the reason why his fights have been so easy is because his training's been so hard. That's
a
lost.
great way to say that.
He's been punished.
You know, that's
He's
a
lost.
great way to compliment him too.
Yes. It's not his fights are easy. It's like his training has been.
It's just
He
so
understands it, and he came from a family.
Oh,
his
man.
father fought Sugar Ray Leonard.
Can you imagine back in the day growing up in that? Dude.
Man. His uncle was the Black Mamba.
I know, man.
Roger Mayweather was the shit, man. I remember
Those fights
watching
back in
Roger
the day,
Mayweather.
Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard. Man,
Oh.
dude, I remember watching that. It was on a black and white TV.
Yeah, man.
Those fights, and when we were growing up, like when you first came in, I was at San Diego with you at Fear Factor one time. I tried to try out for it, me and a couple of my buddies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they wouldn't let us in.
They wouldn't let you in because you were SEALs?
Yeah, they wouldn't let it. That was like a thing. They were like, hey, dude, what do you do here? Like, we're over at like, you're not SEALs, are you? And we're supposed to say no.
Oh, that's hilarious because they thought you were too tough.
And then one of the young guys was like, yeah, I'm a SEAL. And we're like, oh, great.
Oh, no.
But when the UFC made that transition from the UFC 1, I remember watching that one in the dojo and watching them hoist, and all that was just crazy, right? Guy showed up with a boxing glove on and just
Art Jimerson.
Yeah, how that
One boxing glove.
What was that Frenchman's name?
Gerard. Yeah.
Perdue? No.
I'm shit.
Had the white gi pants on?
Yeah, that guy is responsible for Yuki Nakai being blind. That guy eye gouged Yuki Nakai, and he's got one eye now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In the ring?
Yeah. I think that was not in the UFC, though. I think that was in Japan Valley Tudo.
Yeah.
Gerard Gardeau, I believe it is.
Yeah, there you go, Gerard Gardeau.
Yeah. Fought with gi pants on,
Remember
no
that?
shirt. Yeah.
Hit that dude, tooth went with Hackney, Ken
Yeah,
Hackney.
yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there
he
he
fought that big sumo guy.
Remember that when that came out?
Fuck, I remember
crazy,
that well.
man.
I didn't see number 1 when it was live. I saw number 2 when it was in the video store.
Same
Pretty
thing.
sure.
You had the Faces of Death videos. And
Remember that? Exactly. Faces of Death.
Faces of Death 45.
These fucking kids today, it's so easy to get dark shit.
I know.
Car
You had
accidents.
to sneak it. When we were kids, like, what'd you rent?
Yeah.
Well, I got Annie and some other, and then Faces of Death.
Yeah, exactly.
That was good times. I mean, I think there's one Blockbuster still open.
Is there really?
Just one, the original. I think it's still open.
Where?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I saw it on.
Is that real? Oregon?
Yeah, it's somewhere up north, right?
In Oregon, they probably have no internet up there. That's where
Well,
Cam Haynes lives. He's out there running.
Cameron?
all day. Yeah.
That guy.
He's a fucking
Dude.
savage. He's such a savage.
Like, I don't even like hanging out with Cameron because no matter everything I've been through, I still feel weak. Like, bro, I was like, I know you run up these mountains with freaking elk on your back, 24 miles. My brother's like that, like Mojo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, when do you meet him? And Cameron, we'll show up and he's always in shape, got a smile on his face. I was like, what happened, man? What you been doing? Oh, I just ran 900 miles. Like, good for you, dude. You know what I mean? I feel like it's such a douche when
he forces himself to do it too. That's the thing. That guy's got a full-time job.
I don't feel sorry for him now because advertising this through you and on the web, like, hey, I run it like Goggins. Mm-hmm. He'll never stop running. Never. I don't think he can.
No.
He might be one of the hardest dudes on the planet. Him and Cam.
Yeah.
There's a few of them.
They get together too. It's
they
funny.
Do, right? It's like their own little
Cam
club.
showed up in Vegas where Goggins lives. He just knocked on his door. He said, let's go.
Yeah, hey.
And they went out and ran 20 miles at a 6.5 minute mile pace.
Hey, pussy, what's up? I saw you on YouTube. You want some?
Exactly. Well, they're good friends.
They are, yeah.
They push each other. Like Goggins will send me text messages out of nowhere. I'm just letting you know, stay hard. You know,
I'll text him. Goggins, what are you doing? Getting hard? Of course you are.
Stay hard.
Yeah, stay hard, bro. You know.
Yeah.
You stay that way, so I don't. I can get soft.
It's again, people like that, like they're fuel for everybody else. Like they and Goggins knows it. One of the conversations I had with him recently, he goes, I think this shit is bigger than me. He goes, when I get up in the morning, I'm running. It's bigger than me. Like there's something moving through me, and I think that's real. I mean, it sounds hyperbolic. It sounds like it's exaggeration, but I don't think it is. I think there's something that's moving through him that is forcing other people to action, and it makes him greater than just an individual. It makes him like almost like an antenna. Like there's something like he's beaming in the power of discipline and the benefit that it has on a human being.
He's real.
He's real.
He's the real deal.
There's no doubt about it, man.
And obviously with us too, it's an evolutionary thing, right? I mean, meaning like day by day.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of my favorite one was when they took his shoes off during one of his races and it was bleeding through his toenail. He didn't know toenails. Like, hey man, it's like hamburger down there. You probably got to be in a lot of pain. You should quit. He's like, why would pain make me quit? He's the real deal. I mean, we would do Patriot tours. Like I was on tour with him, and he would run from city to city, and then he'd show up all greased up with his abs, and he's kind of he's got that sexy caramel look, that milk dud head. Yes. And all the wives, I mean, all the girls, everybody's like, where's David? Is he here yet? And I was like, no, he's still running from 500 miles away. You know, he'll get here in a couple minutes. And I remember when he first started this with Mojo and I, he started because of all the guys that died. There are a lot of people that don't understand David. I don't want to say don't like him because if you knew him, then you'd love him.
Right, I agree with that.
So there are men down here, like in your family, you have those uncles that you're like, don't mess with him. He's ornery. He's mean. You know, you can't understand him. And he either likes you or doesn't. There are days, David, I mean, he picks on me and Mojo all the time. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm just laying around. He's like, getting soft. I'm like, no, not really. I was just kind of taking a break. And he's like, we don't take breaks. You know, and Jocko's the same way. That's real. You have to have those. And then there's the interim in between. Like I told you in the teens, we got assholes. They're magnificent, but they belong to us. Yes. And then you got guys who read physics books and doctors and like Ivy League graduates that have multiple degrees, like 10-pound heads. When they try to talk to us, I mean, they still, we're brothers under the bird, is what we say. Yes. Like under the trident, brothers under the bird. And
you need all of them.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
So take one of them guys from each walk of life in this country and throw them into one fraternity.
You're not going to figure out satellites without the eggheads.
That's it. Period.
Yeah. You 100%. Need them, and you need the guys like Jocko.
You want them 100%.
That get up at 4:30 in the morning and put themselves through hell.
Correct.
With no one around.
Because some of the eggs, they're like, I don't want to get up. And Jocko's like, get your ass up.
Jocko's listening to metal at 4:30 in the morning.
I know.
Come on. Yeah. And he's doing fucking dips and fucking muscle ups. Dude, you need those guys.
When we were in Ramadi, it was the worst place I'd ever been. After Afghanistan, went to Iraq. Anbar province. Chris Kyle was there. That's when he got those.
Well, let's explain to people that many people don't even know this. After that movie, what the events that happened in the movie Lone Survivor, you went back.
Yeah, I was still in.
Yeah, you went back. You
Correct.
Did more tours.
Right. And the last one we went on was in Anbar province in Ramadi, Iraq. I was there 06, 07. I relieved or ripped out, is what we say, Jocko's platoon, which is Jocko, Chris Kyle, and those guys. And it was hell. I mean, it was the last stand for all. It was like hey, let's fight. Sleeping in our body armor. I mean, I went out there. We took 18 men, and 14 of them got wounded. I didn't lose one guy. The day before we were redeploying, I had 2 point men. They run the platoon out when we're doing operations. I mean, Schellenberger, I miss you, bro. And then a firefighter. That's named Stodden, man. Bro, I miss you. He was walking outside the tent, and a round came over from outside and hit him in the ribs. And he was sitting next to one of the walls, or next to a dumpster, and one of our buddies comes walking. I was like, what's wrong with you? He's like, man, I think somebody hit me with a rock. And he had getting shot. The x-ray is awesome. It's literally his spine, and then you see this 7.62 round right in front of it. They can't pull it out. It's been encapsulated. It just has to sit there. He's fine now, but there was a gunfight going outside the wall, and it had come over and hit him. So the day before we were coming back, he got hit. And then the other one, Schellenberger, I remember we got back, and they had separated us, and he went to a different team. It was SDVs. I know you're familiar with our submersible system.
Yeah.
And 2 months or so later, maybe it might have been a little bit more, he died underneath an aircraft carrier doing a dive. So the darkest place on the planet is underneath an aircraft carrier at night. It's a modern marvel. 6,000 people in an air wing. It's a floating city. It's unbelievable how it even holds in water.
Yeah.
And a lot of the training, all of our training is twice as dangerous as real life. We make it that way on purpose. So that's why more SEALs die in combat, or in training, than they do in combat. Usually when you see SEALs dying in combat, there's a bunch of us. I mean, we get hit. With us, it was 19. Extortion, it was 31. And it just it's just the way we are. But coming out of Afghanistan and then rolling into Iraq, I remember seeing Jocko. And he had his war face on, so he didn't talk to me.
Jocko wakes up with his war face on.
No, but I mean, imagine like when he's got permission to jack you up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Jocko, he's going to jack you up.
Right.
Like he'd go out and raise an American flag out in the middle of the day just to get it going. He's a real deal. So when we found out we were going out there, I was like, yeah. But then in my head, I was apprehensive because I just had my ass kicked real bad. And going back, I had to go back. Out here in Texas, man, if you get your butt whipped, you go back in for more when you get healed up.
Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I had to. Yep.
Immediately?
Immediately. I mean, look at the fraternity I'm in. And they never looked down on me. Because we went through BUDS together. BUDS stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, but it also means if you take everything away from us, we're still BUDS. Because we survived in hell. And when we went back out there, matter of fact, the first gunfight I ever got in, I remember taking a knee and kind of sitting there going, what in the hell am I doing here? I mean, it hadn't even been a year. I could barely walk, really. That's a whole different story altogether. But anyways, we got out of there, and I remember we got back to the base. I'll tell you the story. We got back to the base. Some of my new guys walked up to me. It was our first gunfight. And they're like, hey, I was checking. I was like, hey, how you guys doing? You good? I know you got into it. You did what you were supposed to do. Well done. And they were like, well, I was freaking out when the gunfire started, but then I looked up, and you were calm and cool. Then you looked back at us, and you looked forward, and you looked back, and you kind of made a call, and we got out of there. It was smooth. And I was like, keep thinking that, brother, because when that gunfire started, I took that knee. I was like, what the hell? I mean, it was just like that first fight, like when you start getting beaten up again, and then you realize, like, wait a minute, I'm a fighter. And then I was like, okay, well, let's go. And then I stood up and made the call. But in any situation you go into, there's going to be that kind of hesitation. I hear people all the time like, man, I've been training so long for this, but I still have the fear. And I was like, well, that's different. That's anxiousness. It runs off the same gland, fear and anxiousness, off of your adrenals. So in the beginning, you have fear because you're not trained. But then as you train, then it becomes anxiousness. So when that first punch is thrown, that first bullet flies, it's like, oh, let's go. It's a switch. It has to be that way. You don't want to walk around engaged the whole time. There has to be a trigger.
Also, you can't be calm. You can't just be calm about it.
Well,
you that uncomfortable feeling, right? Whether it's a fight or what you've gone through, you can't be comfortable.
So the difference in the ring and in a gunfight is that you have to talk. Like you're not talking to the dude you're beating up. Like, hey, dude, watch this punch. So with us, when it goes down, you're in a fight, you're like, okay, we need to move this way. And that's why we train like that. In that fight, you got to learn how to communicate. And that's what kind of slows you down. And we do it so much. So here's the difference between the SEALs and everybody else. In our training, kind of one of the things is in the beginning, they wear us out all day for weeks on end. And they tire us out, keep us up, and then they start training us. Then you get your pistol. So you're completely exhausted. And when you learn like that, it's muscle memory. So when we get engaged, our enemy will start attacking us, and then they'll be like, "Oh, I'm wearing them down," and then they think that's a good thing. It's not. It's actually a bad thing, because that's when we start to come up, and that's the separation in our training is they've switched it.
Don't you think that that's a lesson that people can, that if you can apply that to your life, that anything good that you're going to do is going to make you uncomfortable. Anything difficult, all of it, whether even like when you have a child, like the birth of a child, it's uncomfortable. It's a weird moment. Whether you try a new thing in life, where you move to a new place, any new business venture you enter into, everything you do that's difficult is going to make you uncomfortable. And that's the only way to get ahead. That's it. But the most extreme version of it that we can all learn from is war. The most extreme version of it is when the consequences are your existence. You don't exist anymore if you fail.
It's only uncomfortable because you haven't been in it. Everything's like that. Getting dressed in the morning, doing everything. I mean, it's the same thing. Imagine you have the capability of being trained in any scenario. It's whether or not you want to get in. You want
all of it.
All of it, yeah.
Everything makes you uncomfortable if it's new.
Yeah.
And
so don't look at it as uncomfortable.
Right.
That's a word somebody. Yeah.
Exciting.
The fear and everything, like what? Whoa, right?
It's exciting.
Somebody told you that you were supposed to. My mother had breast cancer here recently. Bad. And she had to go get surgery. And matriarchal family. So when mom's sick, Melanie has to take care of all that. I'm kind of when it comes to her, whatever. I'm weak. But she recovered with me. So when I got her home, I was like, Ma, check it out. Pain is pain. When we go down in the gym and I'll work out chest as hard as I can, then that night and the next day, I'm a 2-day guy. So the pain feels like my chest is being ripped out. I feel like sometimes I work out so hard and I bleed and I puke that I'm being torn apart. I love it. Because I know right after I get done with that, I'm going to be stronger. Because I don't get battle weakened. I get battle hardened. Period. I've had the bones knocked out of me. On the ground, just crying. But I knew that was just sharpening me. I was like, here's what's going to happen. We're going to go, I'm going to put you under the knife. You're going to wake up the next morning, you're going to be sore, and you're going to lay up for a week. It's just like we were in the gym, and your chest is sore. 1 week later, she whipped it like the flu. She was ready to leave. She's like, I'm tired of being around you, boy, again. I mean, my mom is something. She's something.
That's awesome.
But pain is a matter of perspective of the person going through it. Because you and I could train for pain. And I'm like, what is that? Well, I was like, I got arm barred. Well, man, I got arm barred all the time. I got waterboarded.
But if you take someone who's never experienced pain and put them through the same thing that's normal for you, for them, they'd be like, this is horrible. I can't believe this.
100%.
And you're like, this is Tuesday.
Right.
This is normal shit.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy. We adapt. That's why people live in fucking Alaska. That's Eskimos and shit. That's why
we're
people...
designed to survive down here. This thing's more capable than we have.
Yes.
I mean, we can't even imagine.
Yes.
Once Elon puts everybody on Mars and everywhere else, I mean, stand by. I mean, it's just, it's designed that way. All the wars, all the atrocities that come through, you kind of learn. And that's what we're kind of going through right now. Right now, most everybody out there is arguing about color and weather. You really can't mess with them two things. They're kind of set.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we're at that point, I'm thinking, okay, well, if that's the last thing we're arguing about, then we're making a transition.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think those things are really nonsense. And I think that the people that live in that world and that exchange the currency of that nonsense, they're only doing it because they don't have anything greater. They don't have a larger picture. So the reason why they dwell on color or gender or all these things that aren't important. What's important is the character of you as a human being. And if you concentrate on color or gender or sexuality or whatever the fuck it is that you're boiling people down to, you're only doing that because you lack the other experiences.
Sure, like I said earlier, man, it's what's different makes us unique.
Yes.
We all drive similar cars, similar colors, but what do? You throw a bumper sticker on it, hang some stuff in a mirror, like lower it, raise it.
The differences are great.
Yeah, man, it's supposed to be. That's the best part.
But the camaraderie in similarities is great too. There's one of the beautiful things about Texas is almost like moving to Texas, like moving to a country. It feels like a country. It does. Like the people here, like I've never felt more at home.
Oh, it's something. It's a thing.
It's a thing.
My 7th grade teacher, I was cutting up in class. He pulled me outside and he kind of poked me in the chest. He asked me what kind of Texan I was going to be. I'll never forget that. Never forget it. And when you come out here, man, we're all different. Like you live in Austin. That's kind of our own little California. We love having it here. We do. The further you venture away from that, it gets, I mean, if you're in West Texas, completely different than East.
Yeah.
North and South, completely different. But the swagger is the same. There's a video that I listened to. You know who Billy Allsbrook is?
No.
So if you're ever having a bad day, listen to that dude.
Who is he?
He's a motivational guy. Billy Allsbrook. There's a couple of guys I listen to every morning. He has this one called I Am a Champion. And take the word champion out and put Texan.
What does he do? What is his thing?
You pull him up?
Billy, how do you spell his name?
A-L.
Allsbrook?
Yeah, Allsbrook. Albrooks. Allbrooks. And so he's like, hey, I wake up in the morning. I'm like, good morning, Texan. I look in the mirror. I'm like, good morning, Texan. I eat like a Texan. I walk like a Texan. If I got to go over it or around it, and unfortunately, if I got to go through it, I'm going to go through it like a Texan. On my gravestone, it's going to say Texan, right? This means I will be as friendly as humanly possible. I want you to entertain yourself and love everything around you. The minute you get out of line, I'm going to bust your ass through the fucking concrete. Because it's a reputation around here. We enforce our own. Police the peaceful people. Then you have everybody in between. You get out in West Texas, get some of them rednecks, man, with them country boys. They don't tolerate you talking back to their women. Women are a big thing around here. Our Texas women, man, we don't like it when you disrespect them, man. That's a thing.
Well, this is a Wild West state.
It is.
This is a state that was forged in the battle with the Comanches.
Yeah, bro, have you read Empire of the Summer Moon?
I have.
What's up?
I had Sam
What's
Gwen
up?
on the podcast.
Bro.
That's the fucking
Man.
shit. I had the guy who wrote that.
Those women would tear you up.
Holy
like, man,
shit.
don't worry about the dudes. If you
Yeah.
slip past the girl, man.
Do you see I had Quanah Parker? I
Yeah,
got
I
a
saw
photo
it.
of him out there.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
And who's the guy in the plane? That's he was the director for, Jeff was telling me.
The guy
Hunter
on the
S. Thompson.
plane?
In the plane with the
Hunter
pistol?
Thompson.
What's that?
The Hunter Thompson picture.
Oh, Hunter S. Thompson. Oh, that photo. Yeah, that's Hunter.
So Mel was giving some lessons on Texas and what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to Whataburger, eat Bluebell ice cream, visit a Buc-ee's because it's like a mall, right? You got to go to the Alamo and you got to know when we fought.
Do you know who the other guy is out there?
Yeah,
Jack Hayes.
yeah.
That's
I didn't
the
know him.
original Texas Ranger.
Oh, on the wall there.
No, the guy
on the
that's-
picture.
Yeah, that photo.
Hayes.
Yeah, Jack Hayes.
Captain
Yeah.
Jack Hayes, yeah.
Yeah, that's
The story
the
on him is
original
legendary.
Texas Ranger.
The story on him, legendary.
Yeah, he's a savage. Look at his hair.
Have you
It's
run
all
across
fucked
any of
up.
our Rangers yet?
No.
Okay, check it out. I was trying to explain this earlier, so have you run across any of our police?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, they're all different. Like if you run into the highway boys, like the black and whites, and they come out, just be your best, like kill them with kindness, and they'll normally let you go. The minute you're like, what's the problem? Then you're in for it.
I've never done that. I don't want to do that.
I mean, then they'll find some stuff, right? But our Rangers, you'll see them. They walk in, they have white shirts on, button down, all starched up, pants, and they got a rig on there that looks like it's made out of the Old West, and they got a 10-star and a hat on. I was always taught never even to look at them because they'll just find some reasons to mess with you. Not pick on you, just like, hey, they're the real deal. They've been through a lot, and our Rangers are something. So there's kind of it's always a bragging right because Captain Hayes, Jack, all them guys, what they had to go through. I think he gave a speech to his troops right before he died. He was sitting in camp telling them, like, hey, I'm proud of you, and they just promoted him to captain. He freaking died. And there's some good ones with the stories that come out of that. I actually have a book that was gifted to me that has the signatures of all the Texas Rangers, current, and a lot of them that are past. That's one of the coolest things I got. People give me stuff sometimes. I can't even believe it, how fortunate I am. I mean, especially to live here.
Does it feel weird because your story has been elevated to the point of like Hollywood movies and, Marky Mark played you in a movie and all that
How great is
weird
he?
shit? He's amazing. Look, I'm telling you, man, as much as people like to give that guy shit,
Who does?
assholes.
Where?
Go online.
Tell him to call me.
Because he's doing push-ups with Dr. Oz.
I
on
don't
some
care what he
fucking
does. Do whatever the hell he
thing.
wants, man.
Listen, he nailed that movie. He nailed that movie. And he nails a lot of movies.
Boston boy.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
I know. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a kindred spirit. I always told him, I was like, hey, man, you're the city version of me. And when it came time to picking the actors for the movie, you want to talk about that?
No.
I didn't pick him. He was the only one I didn't have any say in.
Who did you pick?
So Ben Foster,
Ben Foster. Who's
He played Axe.
Oh, dude, Ben Foster's fucking amazing. That's the
Amazing.
guy who's in 30 Days of Night, that vampire movie.
You remember that?
Most people how about that? Fuck yeah.
Good.
That guy's in everything good. He's
plays
incredible.
on Broadway. I mean, he's
incredible.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
He looked, when I was, cool story with he and I, the first time we met, he called me. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I got to pick up my truck in Texas and drive to the set in New Mexico. So I asked Melly, I was like, hey, you mind if I road trip with him? And she's like, is that a good idea? You don't even know him. I was like, I think it is. I mean, how bad could it be, right? I was like, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to leave him in the desert or we're going to show up best friends. Plain and simple.
There's some gray area in between.
Yeah, it's gray area. It's real big desert out there in West Texas, man. So we started driving. Met up in Dallas at a gas station. Kind of first time I ever saw him. Within about 15 minutes of that road, that's how you know if you can get along with somebody, road trip with them. Get in a car with them and drive across country, right?
True.
By the time we got to the set, we were best buddies. Still are to this day, man. I mean, I was married, kids. I called him, check on him. Him and Wahlberg, he's something. The only thing I gave Wahlberg on the set, I was like, man, don't try and talk like a Southern boy. Don't say... And then there's a scene in the movie where he's like, hey, I'm about fixing to do something. I was like, man, those are double. We can't put them two together.
Don't fake the funk.
Don't fake my Southern accent, damn it. Be your Boston self. And so with Mark, it was kind of different. It was difficult. The first time I met him, I remember that we were driving up on set. And I was actually driving Ben's truck. It was Melly and I. And we're driving into the SWAT training range. We're teaching them how to shoot the live fire guns, the M4s and everything. We train the mess out of them. And as we're driving in, Good Vibrations comes on the radio. Seriously. Like, I didn't program that or anything. I'm just kind of driving in. I got the windows down. It's a beautiful day. Good Vibrations comes on the radio.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Great, right?
Yes.
So good.
Old school.
Old school. So Mel's over there just jamming out. She's like, oh, I had pictures of his poster on my wall, him in his underwear. I'm like, what? You know what I'm talking about? Like, I started going like that route. I'm like, keep talking. Keep talking. So when I showed up on set, I was already pissed at him. I remember walking in. They kind of kept us separated. And I was like, what's up, man? He's like, hey, what's up? And in my head, I was like, man, you know. And then with Taylor Kitsch and Emil, they just, we all had to spend, we were always together. Like, on that set, there were people showing up that were like, hey, look, I'm not even getting paid to be here. It's just an honor to be here. The stuntmen tried to kill themselves. And when people ask about the movie, I was like, man, we made it as realistic as possible without killing them dudes.
The stuntmen, when they're going over those rocks.
Look.
Jesus fucking Christ. There's no way to fake that. The way
they
hit those rocks.
There was no CGI. There was like 90 cameras down that mountain, and they just threw them. I mean, they got hurt so bad. And I remember Pete made me leave during the gun. He's like, hey, you know, I don't want you to get stressed out or anything. I was like, man, I went through this in real life. Why would this kind of stress me out? Because the difference when I tell between the movie and real life is like, this is as far as we could push the actors and the stuntmen without killing them. The one thing about team guys is when we learn how to operate, we learn how to get efficient, just like every other Green Beret and Ranger. But then after, SEALs try to look cool while we're doing it. And the thing on the mountain is when we're falling, like in the movie, it kind of looks sexy while they're doing that. In real life, it's not. It wasn't sexy. I mean, we were getting ripped apart. Bad. I mean, like, you couldn't believe. And I just remember, I remember thinking, like, I couldn't believe that someone else was willing to go through that. I remember thinking to the actors and watching them, I was like, man, because we were on top of the mountain, just sitting out there all day and stuff. I was like, man, I'm sorry you guys got to go through all that. And there was team guys all around them. I mean, so every time they would move or shoot or do something, it had to be authentic. Now, if you ask a team guy, like, hey, did you like any Navy SEAL movies? They'll all say no, unless they're lying to you. Because no SEAL likes movies about themselves. They'll always find something that's wrong with it. A good team guy will. That's just the way it is. But with us, I was like, hey, it was if the families were satisfied, and I told Pete, this is kind of a little thing. I was like, hey, man, if I see this on TNT during Veterans Day, you did a good job. And it showed up there. But no matter how you slice it, I mean, the outcome is like we all died. And, man, it was the craziest ride, bro. Dude. I mean, in my lowest point after, like, going through all those surgeries, then they put me with the stars. And they just cheered me up. It's the weirdest dynamic. Like I was supposed to be miserable and in pain all the time, but I was with them. And they were just like, hey, good job. People always ask me what I feel about that. I was like, well, everyone always said I always did a good job. Even though I got whipped. They whipped me so bad, I got whipped back to my mother. You ever had your ass whipped so bad you got whipped back to your mother? When people ask me about the fight in real life, it was probably over about 3 hours. 3 hours. And Navy SEALs, we love our gear. Like you issue us something, man, we love it. I started that fight with all my friends and all my gear. By the end of it, 3.5 hours later, I was butt naked and all my gear was gone. All my friends were dead. They whipped my ass till I was naked. You ever been whipped like that? I hadn't. I never been whipped like that. Like they just kept coming. So much so, I was so busted up that I didn't know what to do. I was scared to death. It was the only time I'd ever been afraid. I was afraid. Because the difference between fear and being afraid is afraid to leave you a blobbering mess. You just be laying there. I didn't know what to do. I was more like a battery. You put me into my friends, I'll charge. You take them away from me, I'll just sit around. I didn't know what to do. And I lay there all damn day in that hole trying to figure out what I needed to do. And eventually it was like, get up and just start crawling. And I did that. And it got me here. But I don't care. I was in a hole in Afghanistan. All my friends were dead, and I was naked dying. And now I'm sitting right here with you. So you can't tell me that the hardest part of your day is not going to reveal the best part of it. You just don't know when that's coming. And I never could understand that until kind of life took charge and kind of pushed me through it. And then I started to think about, I was like, hey man, them guys paid the ultimate sacrifice. If you come down here to learn how to live while you're dying, and I was like, they got checked out early, which means they did a good job. I'm still working on mine. I'm still trying to get my stuff done. And I always looked at it as that. And my teammates would always push me. And SEALs are the worst. They come down on me harder than anybody. There's stuff I'll say on this podcast, and they'll rip me up. Good. That's how I know they love me, right? Because that's their opinion. I need to hear it. But I just try to do, because I was in that loss column, right? I was like, I got my ass whipped. No team guy likes to see that. So I always keep my head down, stay humble. I tell myself that every day, stay humble. Stay humble, stay humble. Daily control. And work harder than everybody else.
Yes.
The only thing I ever had going for me was my work ethic. If anybody out there thinks I got special skills or something like that, it took that away from me at birth. I had to earn it. That's why it's so difficult for me. They call me the anchor man. I was the slowest guy to ever graduate Buzz. Slowest runner. I mean, it's funny. I mean, sometimes I'm like, Luttrell, how the hell you even get in here? I was like, I don't know, by happenstance, I guess. And then they're like, all right. But then when it came time to putting out, I put out like 10 men. That's all you got to think about. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks about you, man. You put out and it's fine. Style is your style.
Did you make a conscious decision to not watch the movie?
They wouldn't let me.
They wouldn't let you.
I remember that he would show it to me in increments. And then I remember the first time Pete pulled the family out there. My mother was there and my wife. And I think Melly knew the story, but she never had any kind of idea what was going on. And then, thank you. And then I remember they watched it, and I came back in afterwards, and she just came up and held me. Not like your wife normally does, like she's happy to see you. Like, held me like I was damaged. Like she was sorry I had to go through that. I'll never forget that. And then my mother was like, why is there so much profanity? I was like, Mom, I was like, Ma,
so many guys get shot in the head.
I know. I was
movie.
like, Ma, I cuss a little bit when I'm fighting. That's like it's a thing. It's like that's how we get into people's shit. Right? Yeah. Can you believe that?
That's I can, and I love it.
I know, it's so good. And then that's how I knew, like, if Pete did what he was supposed to do. Right? When we were making the movie, they're like, hey, this is the greatest question. Like, hey, if they were going to make a movie about you, who would you get to play you?
Me? Andy Dick.
That's a good choice. I freaking love that guy's humor, man. Most people kind of know that. I was like, Denzel. Like, I want to walk like Denzel and Travolta. Yeah. Like, you kind of attitude. Like the actors, throughout they're just the coolest dude, right? But when it's time, when it really happens, like, hey, who would you like? I'm like, all right, let's think about this. So that's why I said, from for me to pick somebody to play me, that wouldn't be fair.
Did you have ideas?
Not from.
No.
No, not really. Because when they ask me that, I go, man, I don't have any freaking idea.
It's gotta be so hard.
I got a little bit of McConaughey, a little bit of Jeff Bridges from Big Lebowski. I got Dude and the Walter, and I mean, there's everything in there in between, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you're kind of sitting there and they think about it, and I'm like, I'll tell you what, I'll just pick help you with the other guys. You ask my friends; they'll tell you which one of these guys can portray me, and we stuck with it. That worked out.
Well, he nailed it. I mean, he didn't nail it because it wasn't you, but it was the best vehicle for carrying your story because he's a legit movie star and he did a great job and there was no bullshit in it. It wasn't there's no fluff in that movie. There's war movies that I'm sure I've never experienced war, but I'm sure there's war movies that make you angry. Like you watch them and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This is a bastardization of the real thing. That wasn't that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Peter Berg nailed it. He nailed it.
I think it's funny with war movies because sometimes people ask me, like, hey, what's your favorite war movie? I'm like, well, what in what regard? Because if you're talking about like gunfire, like what it means, like if you see somebody really getting it on, have you ever seen Heat?
Yeah.
That gunplay when they're out there on the street, man, that is serious business. Keanu Reeves, Tom Cruise, and them gunplay and John Wick, that's Keanu's own little thing. When he kind of that's tough. I tell with people when they teach self-defense to women, they're like, hey, we're gonna do this. Waz are gonna come through here and do this, and I'm like, I mean, that's all whatever, good. There's 3 spots on a dude you need to hit.
Yeah.
Shut them down.
Yeah.
With women, when it comes to pistols, they teach them how to hold them out and do all this stuff. That's all well and good, too. But all you need to do is tuck them arms underneath them titties, put that pistol right there, and wherever you point them headlights, that's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no pressure whatsoever. So you can overtrain somebody, or you can just, over my life, through all the martial arts and the SEAL teams and everything I'd ever been trained and worked with, you realize, and I'm a medic. Like, I know all the body's functions. I know how they work. Path of blood, everything. I was trained in that. So I know where to go to shut something off. Like a lot of people, when they get in the fight, I'm going to hit them in the... I'm like, no, man. If I'm going to shut you down, like self-defense, I'll just shut you down. As big as I am, as much as I weigh, I don't give a shit who you are. If I come at you and I'm coming from your throat, there's nothing you can do to stop me. I mean, there's those openings. So when you kind of, as we progress and with my wife and everything, I kind of train them in that certain way. You can... It's kind of funny with us, and we talk about this in the SEAL teams. I was like, man, they give us so much tech. I mean, we drop out of the sky, bro, with green eyes, freaking bulletproof. And they give us the stuff to where we end it quick. And we do that so they don't leave us there. Because if you take that away from us and we're like, I'm not going to kill you. I came here to whip you till you get in line. I'm just going to sit here and send my boys in. They're going to whip you down until you just do it to what I'm going to do, right? I mean, how do you weigh that, right? We're so well trained that it has to be that way. It's not that hard to kill a human being, and we got nuclear weapons. What the hell is that all about?
We got enough weapons to kill everybody that's ever lived.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, and I was trained for that.
Planet.
And I was trained for it, yeah. And now when you look back at it, you're like, okay, like if you're really pissed off at somebody, then we'll set it like our way. Then you'll know. Like, I mean, I just think sometimes we get so aggressive and people are scared of something they shouldn't be. They're scared of something different. So you want to kill it? Man, don't kill it. Just understand it. Even with us, right? When we walk into a room, same way with the animals. Like if we walk into a room somewhere and there's a bunch of guys in there, we'll do the walk by. I was like, hey, I want you to see me first, right? And then we'll come back around and be like, hey, what's going on? And then eventually you kind of slowly open up that boundary so that it's a respect thing. And it's like a offensive, defensive thing.
My hope is that when I meet someone, I never have to do that. That I meet someone like you. If I meet someone like you, I don't have to do that. I shake your hand. And we'll look at each other in the eye. I go, what's up? How you doing? What's up, man? How you doing? And we're good.
That's it, yeah.
The problem is when people are vulnerable or they're insecure or they just don't understand who they are. And then you have to do this like sort of slow dance with them and get to be comfortable with them.
It's crazy, right?
I appreciate people that I can just be myself with.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of them. It's too hard.
What is that?
It's
where you grow up?
Well, it's a lot of things. It's life experience. It's accomplishments. It's the things you've seen, the dark moments you've had by yourself. There's so many things. Like, it's like your life is just a wild spectrum of experiences, and some people have had a limited number of those, and those people are the scariest, because those people, they don't know who they are, and they want to establish themselves, and they want to force themselves on you, and they don't even know who they are yet. The people that know who they are, like a guy like Jocko or a guy like Goggins or you or Cam Haynes, or people who know who they are, they're so easy to meet. They're so easy. They're so friendly. They look you in the eye, and you look them in the eye, and you're like, all right, we're all right. Yeah. We're good. And if the world was like that, if the world was filled with men who have accomplished things, who understand who they are and know their weaknesses and know their strengths, we'd be so much better off. But the real vulnerability in our society and our culture is men who don't know their weaknesses, and they want to pretend. They want to pretend they're something they're not, and they want to weaken other people around them. They want to diminish other people's accomplishments. They want to, instead of being inspired by other folks, they want to diminish those folks. And that's it's just an insecurity. And insecurity comes out of a lack of experience, and it comes out of a lack of testing yourself. And this is one of the genuine problems that we have with human beings in our society.
Yeah. Was it like 53% of all Americans don't even leave their town?
Is that real?
They don't even go outside their own wheelhouse. So as they progress through the ranks and you stay there, you'll develop your own reputation in that town.
Yeah.
It's usually when someone like us runs into that town, right? And we run into them. And like, why would you be there's no reason why I should ever be insecure about things that you're proficient at. Yeah. I didn't train in it.
Right.
You're supposed to enjoy that.
Yeah,
like that's the best part. I mean, like you're the way you think and everything. It teaches me something. So not only do I not have to go through it, you did. So I can, if you talk to me and I listen, I can understand it. And if I run into anything like you, I'll deal with it. I can understand it. Because some people will get worked up. I'm like, man, he's like, well, where's he from? I mean, just kind of step back and think about that. And as we grow up, the lucky part about us is we had to leave. Like with the men, he was like, back when the Spartans, hey, your ass is leaving.
Yeah, that's why they did it.
Yeah, that's why they did that.
That's why
absolutely.
They did it.
You get a community or a civilization that literally learns how to run so proficient. Then you're like, okay, as kids, the boys, man, it's got to be hard. We're gonna put you through this.
I think men just struggle with being defined by other people's opinions of them.
Sure,
and it's a real problem. Like your opinion of yourself should be based on your experiences in life, and other people's opinions of you should be based on what you've accomplished and who you are and how you are when you meet them, and it should be undeniable.
Yeah. Never let anybody's perception of you become your reality.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what you're going through, and they may catch you in that part when you're on the downtrodden, or you're getting your ass handed to you, or you're on the peak of it.
Yes.
So, think like that was motivation. Like that was me wrapped up in that body telling you, hey, you're not doing good enough, right? Yeah. It's like a motivational thing to you. It shouldn't be, at no point in time should you ever pull somebody's stress into you and deal with it.
Right.
Your job is to hit them with your, like that positivity that we go through and push it out of them.
Was it weird when they made a movie about your life, when you knew that other SEALs had died, other SEALs had gone through very similar experiences, and then all of a sudden you're getting all this focus and attention? Did you feel like it wasn't warranted, you didn't deserve it, or you felt like you need to spread it around to all your other brothers who you knew had also died?
That's a great question. In our community, that's tough. And when they were telling me like, hey, we got to debrief this, put it into a book, into a movie, I was like, wait a minute, are you kidding me?
Right.
I was like, my brothers are going to chew me up and spit me out.
Right.
And they did. But then I carried myself a certain way, and no matter what, they'll always talk bad about me. If you're not getting picked on in the SEAL community, that means they don't like you. Like if somebody comes up and they're like, "Hey, bro, good job," I'm like, "You're lying,"
Right.
Come on, like we're a family.
Yes.
And none of my brothers really will ever compliment me. They love me, and we love each other, and we'll fight to the death for each other. But they will never pay me a compliment. The matter of fact, the harder they are on me, they're like, hey, and you're a piece of shit. Like, that means good job, right?
Right.
So each one of them are different. And I never judged. When we're in, it's kind of unique because we're in platoons, and you can there are different guys. I mean, they're the guys we keep behind the glass. You don't even want to mess with them. Don't talk to them. We got the geeks, the nerds, the 12-pound heads, Ivy League guys. You got, I mean, all across the board. So we kind of rotate through. That's why they break us up after every deployment. So you can't just get in with a clique. They make you work with everybody.
Really?
Yeah, that's the thing.
They do it?
Yeah, that's why they do it.
So what happens after deployment?
You come back, you got a little bit of break, then you come back in. They're like, hey, this is the new crew you're with.
Really?
Yeah, you think it'd be more proficient to keep us together, but the reason they do that is so we can. It's the teams. You have to learn how to work with everybody.
That's
like,
brilliant.
They'll have a chief that's hard on you, like, man, I don't get along with that dude, but then the LPO will be great, and then all the E5 Mafia and all them guys, and that is by design. It's so we'll always remember to love each other, because there's some guys that you're like, man, that guy's a freaking this, that, and the other. He doesn't do this, yeah, but he does this real well, and that's why he's here. So why would you judge him on that? That's not his business. And then it's hard to pick that up as you're growing up in the teams. I learned this watching the leadership. I was like, I hear all the younger guys bitching about the head shed, the leaders, because they won't let them fight, or they this, that, and the other. I'm like, man, it takes both sides to get us into this. If you're the new guy in here, it's kind of like a freshman congressman going into work. They're like, hey, I'm gonna change everything. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put these rules down, I'm going to do this. And when you walk in there and everybody's been there a long time, they're like, you ain't doing nothing. Shut your mouth, get a haircut, and check the watch bill, right? And then you got to learn to deal with every one of them guys. And that's what makes it the teams. Like, yeah, I know no one likes that guy, but I do because he saved my life. And if he was willing to do that, then I don't care about his style. That's his style. Learn to appreciate that. Because if he's down here and somebody else can tolerate him, that means I can. I just need to learn how.
Yeah.
I shouldn't expect somebody to learn how to deal with me. I should try to learn how to deal with them.
Right.
And that's the humbleness. I'm like, yeah, have I accomplished all this? Am I this? And I am what I am. I am absolutely 100%. But should I pose that on everybody? No, man. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna learn what you love, and I'm gonna learn how to love that, and then I'm gonna learn how to operate with it, which makes us unstoppable force, right? Immovable object, unstoppable force. You put them two things together, when they start coming at you, and you're like, hey, man, he just loves me for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an unbreakable bond, man.
It's brilliant that they figured that out.
It is, right?
It really is.
I don't think they did it on purpose.
Really?
No, I don't. Because we always kind of look into that and like, hey, who made the SEAL teams up? How'd the program start? I think it started off of two different programs that were kind of had a good base, and they put them together. Well, you can, with that being, when you know that, like you know the outlines, right? But when you put them together, you can't even imagine what it creates. It's a hybrid. It's spliced. So there'll be some things that you recognize, but then there'll be some things like, man, I don't even know what that is, right? And once we figure that out, we start going through it, like we're capable of some things you can't even imagine. Yeah. And everybody else will look at it because they can't understand it. It's just because you didn't go through it. And over time, it feeds itself. And those that go through it always look back and be like, hey, I had to go through it, so will you. It's okay. Just do it. Just do it.
Was there anything in doing that movie where, even though you never watched the movie at all, you did read the script, right?
No.
Was there anything where you had an issue with it, or where it wasn't completely accurate, or where they were trying to, like, because you got to take an enormous portion of your life and boil it down to 90 minutes or whatever.
Right, so 5 days into an hour and a half. It's as long as it takes the guy to have to go to the bathroom. That's how long a movie's supposed to be. That's what I was told.
What the fuck is wrong with you if you have to go to the bathroom for an hour and a half?
I know, right? Like me, I was like, well, if you're at home drinking, you know, and then so a long movie takes about 6 months to get made. I didn't know all this. I love to watch movies. I didn't know anything about getting how they were made, and I had to go through the whole process with Pete. I remember when the day we were in his office, what the exact question you asked. I remember it. I would just sit there. He's so great. I mean, everything you hear about Hollywood and the actors and how they live and that flamboyant lifestyle, that exists. And it's great to see, but then they also have to go through chaos, right, to get everything done. Right. So there's those moments of the bliss, but in between that, there's this hard stuff that they have to go through. And it was just he and I and his son. I was in the spare bedroom. I went to the office, and he's writing the script up, and I just threw the book across the table. I was like, there it is. That's a debrief. I didn't write it. It wrote itself. I was like, everything that's in there, man, how it went down. If there's an opinion in there, that's an opinionated thing, but it is how it went down. And then, so he started writing, and he would go out and have to deal with the SEALs and like go on deployment and come back, and then we would beat him to death. I mean, beat him to death. I don't know if anybody can appreciate what that man had to go through. Hollywood actor. He didn't even know what he was getting himself into. He had no choice. And we would go out and have the best time, man, and we would still wreck him. The minute he thought he was doing something good, we'd hammer him. And they blanketed the set. Like the stunt coordinator, Kevin, he was great. And then there were the SEALs that were on there. So it got to the point to where, man, he just didn't, it evolved into itself. Like you didn't have to make something up. There's so much stuff that we kept from the story that if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. Now, when it came to the movie, we filmed it around the gunfight.
Like what?
So we filmed it, the movie around the gunfight because that's when everyone was alive. I was like, you shouldn't have known that I was going to be the guy that make it out. When they were picking the actors, I was like, so if you get somebody like an A-list actor and then everybody, they'll know that he's the one that made it out. I was like, when you're watching the movie, you shouldn't know that. Of course, Hollywood does kind of does their own thing. But the craziest part about that whole operation was getting me out of there, and that wasn't in the movie. In the movie, they did a daylight extract. Like they came in, landed, and a couple of shots, and they got out of there. In real life, it wasn't like that. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was a night, and the world was blowing up. We were in this like a volcano, like sitting in the middle of this volcano, and I remember looking down the mountain, and there's a river running down. I mean, it looked like miles down. And they had moved me. They had to carry me. I couldn't walk. And they kind of like, and we would stumble over the Green Berets, Rangers. It was a hodgepodge. Let me tell you something. When them guys showed up to rescue me, when they found me, I was laying in a riverbed, dried up, tucked under a rock. The villagers had shoved me underneath this rock. And there was this one guy I had never met before. And he was sitting there listening to a AM/FM radio. And he was scrolling through the channels. We hand those out for morale. Like the U.S. military hands those out. And he had one of them. I recognized it. And he was listening to the different channels. And I could recognize the different languages. German, Japanese. And he was like, hey, they're talking about you. And I was like, okay. I didn't know who he was. He was kind of messing with me a little bit. Because I couldn't move. And he had this stinging. Anyway, it's not important. And then the Gulag and a couple of the villagers came and picked me up. They had to carry me everywhere. And
Why did they save you? Because in the movie, it's confusing.
It is.
Because in the movie, it's like these guys save you, and you don't know why they're saving you.
When he found me,
they have to fight the Taliban.
Yeah, can you believe that?
Crazy.
So I had been crawling for a day and some change. I was like crawling through the mountains, and I had somehow, some way, got to the top of this ridge line. I was so thirsty. I mean, but I hadn't thought about this. There's an insanity that goes with thirst. I was so thirsty that I was willing to kill anything to get water. I mean, you can't even believe it. I was drinking my own urine, my own blood. Nothing would quench the thirst. God, I hadn't thought about this in a while. And I got to the top of this ridge line, and there was a waterfall. And I was trying to slide down into it. I was like, I'm just going to go down in here, and I'm going to hit that water, and it's going to be something good to drink. So I tried to slide down. I just took off, like uncontrollably. I started sliding. I rotated upside down. And I remember looking over, and my rifle was sliding beside me. I couldn't throw that thing away. It's like every time I'd lose it, one of my boys was like, hey, you're going to need this. And I flipped into upside down, over backwards, into the river. And I remember my knees hit me in the face, and it knocked me out again. And I was I was a blobbering mess. Everything was broken. And I rolled over, and I remember kind of sitting on all fours. I picked my head up, and I looked up, and there was that water fountain there. And I remember sliding down. This is the craziest thing. God, I hadn't thought about this. And I remember seeing this little pool of water, and I was like, oh, that'd be a great place to get something to drink. So I crawled back up into this thing, and I leaned into that waterfall, and I remember washing my face and hands. My gloves were, I had gloves on, the mechanic gloves, and all the fingers were ripped out, and the palms were ripped out. So I was just kind of, and it was the best water I ever had. I'll never forget it. It's cold, and I was hurting real bad. And I remember hearing somebody screaming at me, and I kind of turned around, and over my shoulder, there was a guy standing there looking at me, pointing at me. He was like, Taliban, Taliban. So I swung around with my rifle, and then all of a sudden, behind me again, I could hear someone screaming at me. They're like, and I look up, and there's this guy standing on the hill that I'd just fallen off of. But he didn't have a weapon. He was just pointing at me. And then there were some guys on the ridgeline moving around. They had weapons. I saw them. So I turned back around, and I kind of started to crawl. I was like, man, I was in a channelized area. It was kind of bad. And I remember I was leaning against this rock. I was sitting on my butt. I had my rifle in my hand. I was breathing. I couldn't breathe. I'd bitten my tongue in half, and I was like, that's a crazy story. But the guy screamed at me again. I turned around to shoot, and he saw me, and he ducked behind this rock. And then, I mean, right over my left shoulder, probably 30 yards, not even that, I hear, American, American. And I kind of turned around, and it was Gulab, one of the main villagers who rescued me. And I turned around on him. I had my gun at my hip. My safety was off. My tension was out of my trigger. And he was kind of looking. I mean, we were staring each other straight in the eyes. And I was like death. You know how you can smell death when it's there? I was like, man, okay, let's go. And God, I don't know why I didn't kill him. I didn't have to even go to my shoulder to kill him. I mean, I had the tension out of my trigger. I was just sitting there looking at him. He was looking at me, and he wouldn't say it. He said American a couple times, and then he said it again. I was like, Taliban? And he was like, American? And then he kind of put his hands up, and I came off my trigger. I don't know why I didn't kill him. And he started walking down on me. He's like, okay. Shampoo, hydrate. That's what he's telling me, shampoo, hydrate.
Shampoo, hydrate?
That's what he said. 2 English words he knew. I was like, shampoo, hydrate. You know how good that sounded? I was like, bro, I would love some water, and if you want to wash my hair. It's so funny. So if you ever get into a bad situation and you're about to lose your mind, just say shampoo and hydrate, and you'll be fine, dude. And I'm like, can you believe that? That's what he said to me.
That's crazy.
And I dropped my muzzle down, and he walked up on me, and I pulled a grenade out. I pulled the pin. Don't ever do that. And I was going to, like, if you try something, I'll just kill us all. I don't care. But then he kind of rolled me over, and he's like, it's okay. I got you. You know, I could just tell. You know how when you can tell, like, hey, man, I got you. I freaking got you. You can feel that. Like, you can feel if someone's like, hey, man, I got you, and then I'm going to jack you up later. And this guy was like, man, I got you, man. And I repinned that grenade. I'll never forget. I was like, I heard you're not supposed to do I mean, there's so much crazy stuff. Well, anyways, all these kids came running out from everywhere, and they picked me up. I couldn't walk, and they started carrying me down the ridgeline into the valley. And there was a village down there. And then the kids and everybody, they were laughing and whatnot, and they pulled me into this room, and they started kind of doctoring me up, stopped my bleeding, patched me up, gave me all the water I could drink, and then the Taliban came in after that and then snatched me up. But
so how much of what was in the script, I know you didn't see the movie, but how much of what was in the script was accurate?
Every bit of it. Everybody died. Like in the movie, when you see those guys falling down a mountain, it looks cool. Imagine going past cool to when it looks like chaos. Imagine playing your favorite sport on the side of a mountain with people shooting at you.
It didn't look cool.
I was like, if it
looked
can't
horrific.
Look sexy. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, like, it's getting ripped apart. And like, we would come in, and the guys would just be like, Matt was shot in the face, and it was kind of, his eyes were gone. And like, I'm a medic. Some of them were bad. Some of them was bad. But then, you know, I was like, I didn't know what to do. I never knew what to do. Isn't that crazy? I was like, man, I was well trained. I was like, I got my ass in a pickle. I couldn't get out. I didn't know what to do. And I would just sit there. And there'd be times when I would think about my brother and all my buddies. I was like, hey, man, you guys have done stupid. I'm still here. Come get me. And then I could see aircraft flying overhead. And I was like, oh, I'm right here. And they would just keep flying. And then someone would try to kill me. Like a wall would blow up or a bullet would zip through the wall. And then they'd have to move me. Man, it was a hell of a week. It was rough. They left me in this hole for a while. They buried me. And I was like, man, I'm a foreign man in a foreign land. Everybody's dead. And I mean, who knows where I'm at? I was in hell. I was literally in hell. And if it wasn't for them, I mean, and the way that whole thing worked out, it's funny when I talk about it. It's hard to wrap your head around it, right? Like, man, why am I even sitting here? Because y'all came and got me. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when y'all showed up. I signed up to be an expendable asset, to die if necessary. That was the sexiest thing I ever heard of. I was nobody. I don't have any special skill. I was an expendable asset, and you work till you become dependable, and they'll kind of keep you around. So when y'all showed up, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I remember talking to them guys like, man, I can't believe y'all made it out here. We were out in the middle of nowhere. And then the first time I ever got like scared was when they were with me and trying to get me out of there. I was like, hey man, I hope y'all can get me out of here. Is that selfish? I was like, man, I hope that's selfish, is it? I was like, I sure would like to live, man. And they it was a crate to get me out of there it's a whole different movie altogether. Those Green Berets and those Rangers and PJs that were on that plane, on the hill, the pilots, like Spanky, he was one of the pilots and Skinny. When they came in to crash. They don't ever talk about that. Like, he had to crash that bird on the side of a mountain to get in there, and he did it. He didn't give a shit. He's like, watch this, boom, and just brought it in. I mean, there was a gunfight going on from the top and the bottom. Every aircraft we had in country was wagging, like spinning overhead. The Spectres, that's the hand of God, or the finger of God. I mean, the weaponry we have, man, they can look down on you and just erase you. And they got me out of there. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't thought about that in a while.
What is it like to talk about this now? All these years later, are you trying to pull these memories back? Do you understand these memories clearly?
Oh, yeah, I got them.
Got them locked in?
Yeah. That's on purpose. So I'll never forget what we had to go through. So the greatest gift I ever got down there was my friends. I love them. I love my friends like you can't believe. So the guys I grew up with, when I joined the military, they kind of separated us, right? And then I found their doppelgangers, right? And they raised us up, and we signed up for hell. They put us through hell, all of us. And they put us through things and like, hey man, you go through this, that, and the other. And then they sent me overseas and they killed every one of them in front of me. I didn't like that. I've been through a lot. I can deal with a lot. I mean, there's some things that don't even affect me that will cripple most people.
Like what?
Everything else life throws at you.
Because of what you've been through.
Well, no. My blessing was that I don't ever hold a grudge. I don't. Like, if we go through something, we get over it, we're good, let's just get through it, right? But then, if you kill my friends, and if you hurt my friends, I have a problem with that. Like, I don't like that at all. And when they killed them in front of me, and then I was like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Especially coming back to the team, with all my buddies. Like, man, what happened? 19 dudes died. And I didn't make it out of there. Y'all had to come get me. I mean, they whipped our ass bad. So I always try to think about it like, man, all right, there's got to be one guy down there that gets his ass kicked so everybody can look at like, hey, you can get an ass whooping and come back. You just can. So I had to continually tell myself that, and everybody I would run into, when they put me on the lecture circuit and I got to run into all of our people and everything, they were like, hey, good job, man. Proud of you. I was like, thanks. And then to honor all my buddies, because if I keep telling their story and talking about their names, you'll never forget them. That's kind of what I look at it like if anybody had to make it through there to tell the story, it had to be you. You got texting, you got to give to gab, you love bragging about your friends. When we were sitting around the tents and everybody was like talking about getting out, they're like, I'm going to start this t-shirt company. I'm going to be a podcaster. I'm going to be a CEO and make $1 billion. And we have those. All I ever want to do is buy a bunch of land and have my friends live on it so we could just hang out. And that was my blessing. So, going through that and then going back and watching other guys die. Then after I got out, extortion went down. They killed 31 of my teammates' best friends. My brother's
extortion?
Yeah, when there was extortion operation when 31 SEALs died. It was it was after Red Wing. There was a Ranger battalion that got into a gunfight, a TIC, Troops in Contact, and there was Dev Group guys, Gold Squadron, and they went in on a 47 to help out, and they got blown out of the sky and killed 31 guys right then. I remember I was in D.C. when that phone call came over. I was in a hotel fixing to give a speech the next day, and my buddy called. He's like, "Hey, we lost some boys." I was like, "Okay, how many?" And the first time he called me, he was like 7, and then he was like 12, 15, 16, 19, 20, 22. He would keep calling me back up into the point where it was like 31 guys, 31 dudes. That's a third of the platoon. A Dev Group guys, the most highly trained individuals we have on the planet, and they died in a heartbeat. My brother's roommate was on that bird. All them guys. I mean, it's a small community. That guy you have out here watching out for you. I mean, we're connected. So it's like our whole life, man. It's always been that. But you sign up for it. Chris Kyle, when he got killed. I mean, it's kind of like all these guys that we grew up with, the young boys, they're just dead. They died. And you learn how to deal with that until you get to the point where we're at right now. So when the younger generation is going through it, it's like, hey, it's part of it. Like I told you, you came down here to learn how to live while you're dying. Anybody who checks out early is because they got the job done. We haven't. I mean, don't look at it any other way.
Was there ever a part of you that tried to understand what those guys who were in Afghanistan were going through, who were attacking you?
Yeah.
Like imagine them not understanding your language or understanding who you are or why you were there, but recognizing that in their eyes, this enemy was on their mountain.
Sure. Did the same thing in them coming over here.
Yeah, exactly the same thing.
The village that saved me, I love them. We go fishing and we hang out. We're exactly the same. We live in 2 different areas. They take things a certain way. We take things a certain way.
Are you still in contact with those guys?
Yeah. They live here.
They live here now? Do they really?
Yeah. Yeah,
No
they're
shit.
here. Absolutely. 100%.
Wow. How'd they get over here?
How do you think?
You got them over here.
Man, you do me a favor. I'll do you a solid.
Well, you don't have to say where
No, I
exactly,
won't.
but
Yeah,
they're over here.
Yeah, kids going to college.
Wow.
I got to deal with them all the time.
That's amazing.
I still
That's
talk to him. He
amazing.
still yells at me. Takes care of me like because he saved me, protected me. So when he talks to me, he yells at me, and I'm like, I love you too, man.
He speaks English?
No,
No?
but his kids do.
Oh, wow.
I speak enough of his language to understand. Like when we talk,
That's amazing.
when he yells at me, I'm like, I know it because they're funny.
What's his name?
Muhammad Gulab. Muhammad.
Gulab.
Yeah.
Muhammad Gulab.
Yeah, Muhammad. And have you have Muslim friends?
Yes.
Okay, good. So when they get upset about, they're like, "This is an atrocity. God will smite you down." And then I'm like, "I know." And then they'll look at you like, "I love you. I don't want to talk about this anymore."
Right.
They're so great. They're so great. I mean, if you kind of understand, they're like the serious hand. They don't. There's certain things they don't mess around with, and there's certain things that they'll get upset about, but then they'll get over. And with me, I was kind of helpless. I was just laying there when he found me. I was in a river, dying. And he's like, "Hey, what's up? There's a white boy down here. Let's get him out of here." And then like now he can't get rid of me. Now he has to live here with me and deal with all that. And it's so funny because he has 11 kids. They're just multiplying. They do that. Then it's a thing. And I deal with him just like I deal with the other family member. I mean, like I'll never forget him. And people will tell me like, "Why?" He yells at me. I'm like, "Man, you don't know what we've been through." When that dude found me, and then he'd been shot. I mean, you can't believe what that dude went through to get me back here. What he put up with up to this point. That's why he's here. Because how many times they try to kill him. And
So you extracted him.
not me personally, but I mean,
You had them.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, one thing feeds
Yes.
the other, right?
Right.
I'll never take credit for anything that everyone else had to put a hand into, but he's here now, dealing with everything else that every other Texan has to deal with, including me. I tell you what, it'd be good ones like get me and him in here together.
I would love that. Let's do it.
You know how funny that'd be? He yells at me all the time.
I'm 100% in. Let's go.
Yeah, I think I'm a disappointment in his eyes. How great is that?
why
Dude?
you to
I
be
mean,
president?
bro, he's like, man, I saved your ass for. I mean, you better get to bit.
You're not even president yet.
He's like, I mean, he'll get so upset about some stuff, and he's like, this is. I don't even. God was like. What's for dinner? Let's get that. You know, those get over it so quick.
Right.
They're great. I mean, like, once you learn how they yell at you, I mean, a lot of people are scared to death of that whole thing. But if you have to be saved by it, like if I was helpless, I was freaking helpless.
And why did he save you?
I was like, God, Spirit, man, he's just a good man. He's a freaking good man. And then I asked him for help. So there's a code. There's a Pashtuwali code. And I was laying there, and I looked up at him, and I was bleeding. I didn't realize how bad I looked till I got home, and I got off when they dropped the ramp on the plane, and they were carrying me off there, and there was a girl sitting there. I'll never forget her covering her face, crying. I was like, I must have looked a lot worse than I thought. But no matter what I look like, he got me back here. I couldn't believe it. Man, we went through some crazy times out there. Crazy times. I couldn't walk anywhere. I was a big man. They were hauling my ass everywhere around that mountain. I was laid up in the middle of the night. People trying to kill us. Cars blowing up. It was the craziest time. And they were just kind of like, hey, it's a Wednesday. That's what I thought. I mean, I found. Isn't that crazy? Somebody like that. He didn't owe me nothing. Matter of fact, I probably caused him more grief than I did anything. And no matter how much I try to repay him, it's always that's weird. What a situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what your perspective is.
Well,
looking back on it, that it's just this thing that became.
There, you need some more of this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got another one over here. It became pop culture. It became a movie. It became the way people like. For civilians who look at what's going on over there, they can look at it through news stories, but the only way you see it live is either through some sort of video coverage of the reality or something like your situation where you can't see a video. You have to have a movie where it's a recreation of it. And it's hard for people to understand. That's one of the beautiful things what Peter did in that film is that he made it. There's no glamorization of it. It was horrific and as realistic as I could understand as a person who's never experienced war.
Imagine having a neighbor you don't like or you understand, and then you get into the worst situation, he steps up to help you. Then you're like, all right. Yeah, I don't get along with him, man. I don't even like that food. I mean, it tears me up, and I get up. You know what? I'm gonna sit here and deal with it just because I freaking love you.
Yeah.
I mean, because of that.
Yeah.
If he's willing to put out like that, I mean, what? That's how friendships are formed. The guys I grew up with, man, we fought together. Families, you can be born with them, and you can shed blood with them.
Yeah.
And like them guys are just willing to stick it out. I mean, that's a thing.
No.
And this guy didn't owe me nothing. In the hand of God, right? He came showing up. I mean, I was in the middle of nowhere. You can't even believe it, bro. I can't even believe we're talking about this. I should have been dead a long time ago, man. He come walk. I'll never forget looking at him. I'll never forget his face.
Did you ever feel like there was a reason why he found you?
Sure, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah, always.
Like you're meant to tell this story?
Well, I mean, we're all meant to go through certain things. And once you kind of, I always looked at it like, I always told, if you don't think God's a wild man, he wouldn't be good at Christianity. So if you want to walk down a rabbit hole, how far you want to go down? Because there's the kids down here that don't want to do nothing. But if you want to go play, let's go do it. And then you get down there where you're in the middle of a hole in the back of nowhere, and all of a sudden that shows up. I mean, I was like, hey, bro, I was laying in this tree. I'm talking about this. My wife going to walk in here and friggin', she's like, shut up. I crawled. I remember at the end of the day, I woke up. I was upside down over this rock. It was hot. So hot. I remember my mouth was full of blood. I couldn't drink enough to quench the blood out of, and mud out of my mouth. And I flipped over and I wanted to crawl. The river was like right there. And I wanted to crawl to it, but then all my buddy's blood was running through it. And I was like, no, I'm going to go this way. and I crawled all night. And then I remember the storm came in, but then it cleared up, and I was laying in this tree. It was on the side of a mountain. There's roots laying everywhere. It was huge. It was a huge tree. And I'd crawled in there to hide. I was like, they won't see me in here. Remember that scene from Predator when Arnold crawls into the deal and he's kind of sitting like that? That's kind of how I was. And I was looking up and I was like, I've had enough. I was like, hey boss man, Ivy, you whipped my ass like I can't believe. I was like, I've had enough, man. I you killed everything around me. I'm humbled. I was like, just get me out of here, and I'll make sure that I take care of it.
You know what's crazy, Marcus? I had a dream last night, and I'm remembering it now, where I had mud in my mouth. I had dirt in my mouth, and I couldn't rinse it out. I've never had a dream like that before. But it's a dream because I knew I was going to be talking to you.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. So that's what it's like, right? When your mouth's so dry, water won't quench it. So like when that blood, and I'm in the heat. I remember. So in war movies, if you could put smell through the theater, it would be real, because that's what a impulse is. And I remember that when men get to the point where we fight so hard we want to kill each other, like tear each other apart. There's something that happens. It's like you can't turn it off. It's like a ravenous. I mean, like I want to kill you. That kind of thing. Like I want to kill you.
Yeah.
Not only I want to tear you apart. And when we fight like that, because you see your buddy fall and you're like, come on. It's so hard to turn off. And then I remember thinking that was my appetite, that I'd been there, that I'd fought so hard that I couldn't swallow. Like I wasn't allowed to talk. I remember that, thinking that. So yeah, that mud and that blood, when you're sitting there thinking about it, you're like, man, all I have to do is sit and watch. Like I need to.
But the crazy thing for me, I've never had a dream like that before. And
I bring weird shit in, man. You name.
But it is. I think there's some sort of synchronicity going on, man. Because I got up in the middle of the night to take a leak. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and I'm like, what the fuck kind of dream is that? Like I had a dream where there was like dirt in my mouth, and I was trying to spit it out, and I was trying to drink, and I was dying of thirst, but I had to get the dirt out of my mouth first. And I've never had a dream like that before, Marcus. And having this dream before talking to you, it's freaking me out, man.
So a storm hit last night. I woke up at 3:00. I kind of do that. I think that's like a transition sometimes. At the middle of the night, there's the witching area, right?
Yeah. The thunder and the lightning.
Yeah, but it's almost like a taste that you push so hard that you're like, hey, you shouldn't be killing them like that. You guys are brothers. And that, when you fight your brother so hard, you're like, man,
right.
Because you're right. I mean, hey, shouldn't we I mean, we could probably get along famously. We do. But oh yeah, you can't believe what comes in with me, man. I didn't mean to put a hex on you.
No, I think there's some way.
Didn't Elon say he was an alien, right? You can't believe what I am.
You're a predator. There's a connection that we must have made. It doesn't make any sense, man, because there was no reason for me to have this dream. But I had this dream where I couldn't get the dirt out of my mouth to get the water in, but I needed to get the water in. That's crazy.
I remember.
It's crazy that I'm remembering this now.
I remember looking at Mikey. I don't know if I'm sure I've told this story before, but we kind of sat down halfway through, shot up. We're all busted up, and I look over him. He had this mud in his mouth, like in his teeth and everything. I was like, hey, bro. I was like, you got something in your teeth. I'll never forget that. I was looking at in the middle of all this, and mine was the same way. I was bleeding through. I couldn't even speak. It was just kind of one of them deals. And he's just like, and Danny sat down. He's like, man, I've been shot again. That's not funny. I'm sorry.
But it's funny to you right now. Dude, I understand.
Bro, but his mom's going to haze my ass. That's not funny. But he sat down. He's like, bro, I've been shot again. I was like, you little bastard. He's like, well, and Mikey goes, we all been shot. Just keep going. I was like, yeah, but Mikey, you got some. I'll never forget that. And it just kept. That was the hardest part. That was the hardest part, man. Was that. Like my nose had been kicked through my face. I couldn't breathe through my. And every time I had to take a breath, like I'd swallow my tongue. I was like, it was the hardest thing. That's what shut it down. Like we fought so hard till they shut the engine down. You're like, man, I can't breathe no more. And then we got blown up, and that's kind of the end of it. But I was like, man, yeah, that happened.
It's crazy that I had that dream. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I think like people's thoughts and ideas and consciousness, sometimes when someone has had an experience that's so intense as yours, that it reaches out and it grabs a hold of other people's consciousness. It touches it. And I know this sounds crazy, but I think it touched me in the middle of the night because I knew I was going to talk to you today, and it hit me.
You don't think that's a real thing?
I think it's a real thing.
Okay, good.
I think it's a real thing.
I hope so, man, because it is. I hope you know that.
I woke up confused. I woke up with like dirt in my mouth. Like I was thinking, like, why do I have this feeling? I woke up to take a leak, and then I'm like, this is an intense experience of this dream where I had dirt in my mouth, and I needed to drink water, but I couldn't. And I was trying to rinse the water out to get the dirt out of my mouth so I could drink water.
Man, it wouldn't work.
But the fact that I'm 53 years old. I've never had that dream before.
So the thing was, is I had lost all my water, and I was the one place I could. So that was when I was drinking my blood, like urinating and nothing. Like I couldn't get it out. And even so much when they found me, I couldn't, it was like glued shut. And, man, I hadn't thought about that since that day, but yeah, I'll never forget that, how much, it felt like somebody had shoveled like dirt in my mouth and then mixed it with blood. So dry that water couldn't get it wet. And, yeah, it was a real thing.
That's why it's so crazy that I had that dream last night.
That's
Marcus,
not crazy.
I've never had that dream before. It's just crazy that I've had that dream last night, knowing that I was going to talk to you today, and I didn't know your story. I didn't know that part of the story.
Nobody does, yeah.
It was so real. I think your experience in some strange way connected to my mind last night.
I told you earlier, you run into somebody, like we're all connected.
Yes.
That's how it works. Like the more you go through and the more you open up, the more you open yourself up. And then whoever runs into your life, you're part of that. So, yeah, that's absolutely a real thing.
It is a real thing. It just doesn't seem like it should be real.
Why?
I don't know, because it seems magic. It seems like there's no way
You don't believe in magic?
I do.
Oh, what the hell's the problem?
I do, but I don't.
Wait a minute, you don't believe in magic?
I believe in it, but I believe a lot of people pretend.
Oh, well, yeah.
A lot of people are full of shit.
They are.
Yeah,
they are, man.
That's the problem.
But there's a lot of people that aren't.
Yes, a lot of people aren't.
Well,
Yes.
then there you go, man.
Yes.
It's like, man, sometimes you run into things, you're like, well, I thought this was going to be, and then you run into the one that's like the real deal. You're like,
but as you go through life, it's hard to sort out. It's like you got to sort out what's real and what's not real, and that's why you appreciate the real so much. It's because you've experienced so much bullshit and so much nonsense.
The way I was always taught to think about that is everyone thinks of perfection. Like if we were all like this perfect picture. Well, what is perfection? It's imperfection. Because something that you love is something that I want. Something you think is beautiful, maybe I don't.
Yeah.
And as you go through life, when you break up that perfect picture, you get the pieces. And like some pieces fit together that aren't supposed to be together.
Yes.
Right?
Like men and women.
And then as you go through it, and when the connection comes in, like you're supposed to be here and you're supposed to see this and you're supposed to learn that, and then it kind of creates that picture. And imperfection is perfection. It depends on what side of the picture you're on. And as we go through this, everybody has their stage in life. And at no point in time is it bad. It's hard, yeah, because you're not ready for it, but we learn.
I think the problem is the word perfection is not a human word.
No, it's not, right?
Like the word perfection works with like puzzle pieces. Like a puzzle piece fits into the other spot because it's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But with human beings, there's so many variables. It's just like the word perfection is not adequate, and it's not applicable because the best people aren't perfect. Like you don't want a perfect person. Then you get a Dr. Manhattan.
Dude, we married our opposite.
Yeah. Exactly.
In our world, like where you and I grew up,
perfect.
martial art world, I mean, everything that we learned how to do, like you and I running together, the last two we should have been hooking up with, it's them two.
Yes, exactly, exactly. But that's the best two, because it's not a perfection thing. It's and some sort of compatibility thing.
Yeah.
And then it's also like recognizing that you need these opposites and these different forces in order to get you to understand yourself better and how you relate to other people. And that everyone's different, and that the best way to experience that is to encounter these different people and to love them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, some people come up like, hey, immediately you're supposed to love this person. You're supposed to love what they are. I'm like, well, where does that exist?
Yeah.
That's not how it works. I was like,
Yeah.
first we're going to get to know you,
Yeah.
and then we'll get to like each other, and then we'll love each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of a process. But in the beginning, you're supposed to think, all right, the opposite. Let me go get to know what this is. And then even the worst stuff they come at you with, you're actually prepared for it, whether you know it or not. So when you come in there, and then over time, the odd couples,
Yep.
they're the best.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who's your odd couple friend? I know you got a friend that people wouldn't even express. I mean, couldn't even expect you to have, right?
Oh, I got a lot of them.
Same here.
Yeah.
And with you and I, man, where we are, what we're designed to be, we're trained for certain reasons. You have a reputation, so when they see us palling around with something completely opposite of us, like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, yeah, man, it's entertaining. I love it.
But that's a sign of strength.
Strength, yeah.
You can
correct.
appreciate people that are different from
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And I think there's also a reality that whoever you are is different when you're around different people. Like, I'm different around you than I am around a different person. And it's like you're not autonomous. You're not completely independent of the people that are around you. You are some sort of a conglomeration of all the people that you interact with. And I'm different around you than I am around someone who's annoying or frustrating. And I'm different around that person than I am around someone who's like kind and like really easygoing and maybe like too open-minded.
Yeah.
You know, I'm different around different people.
Yeah.
And who I am around you is a reflection not just on who I am, but also in how I react to who you are.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about relationships that's so important. You know, there's a lot of people that are good people that get in relationships with the wrong person, and it becomes chaos. And it's not that person's bad or that you're bad, but the two of you together, it's wrong.
That's what I told you. Like,
Yeah.
if you encapsulate both of those, like
Yeah.
the sin of the virtue, stand by for the ride.
Exactly.
I got a meme the other day that said that it was like, man, you're going to talk to people that love me, and you're going to talk to people that hate me. They're both true. They're both right.
Yes. Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
Never forget that.
Yes.
So, but when we go into those situations, like with you and I, like, hey, man, I'll get as bad as you want. I'll go down deep around that rabbit hole as you want to go. I'll go deep. Like, I mean, come on. Where it's just me and you. Nobody else wants to hang around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we'll get back to it, and then you kind of run into everybody like, oh, I'll hang out with him till this point. And there's certain guys down here that are like that. And
Yeah.
that's a true statement.
Yeah, it is a true
Everything's
statement.
different down here. Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah.
That's perfection.
Yeah. The beauty in life is in the imperfection, right?
Correct. That's
Yeah.
perfection.
Yeah.
Imperfection is perfection.
Right. Yeah, and imperfection is complete. It's like there's a chaos to life that's it's not just, it's preferable. It's better that way.
So good. So good. I mean, if everything was regular, like I get up, I go do this, and
Boring as fuck.
Boring.
Nothing gets done. Nothing gets done.
Nothing gets done.
No new art gets created.
Nope. Let's
No-
wreck some stuff to build some stuff. Yeah. Period. When we were talking about how the cycles of life and what we're going through right now, it's the same way. It's like, man, the millennials, I can't even imagine the generation that came out, like the 2020s.
Yeah.
Phoenixes, right? They were born in chaos. Born in a pandemic, freaking.
I know.
And now they're coming out. They're still tearing stuff up, but they'll be fine, right? They're kind of.
And the people that are taking advantage of the situation and want to impose all sorts of weird rules on people like that's natural too. That's the natural inclination to take advantage of this, like this recognition that there is some sort of a weakness in our culture.
100%.
And they just have to
do
attack it.
That's it.
Whether they're attacking it and they're calling everybody racist or everybody sexist or everybody homophobic, it's natural. It's natural for them to want to do that because they recognize an opening.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like, hey, man, you're a racist. Oh, all right, whatever. No, I don't like. I love black people. I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when we go through this, like especially with our generation, they put us into situations like, no, I'm not what you say I am, and you just don't know what I am. But everyone will take their opportunity to jump in there,
right?
And with us, once you've been through so much, you've been called so much, and you kind of sit back, you're like, okay, all right, fine, but you know.
It's one of the more unique aspects of being a person is this recognition that there are people that will capitalize in these weird little openings in society and culture. And that we're in a weird time right now because of the advent of social media and also this weird situation we're in where there's so many wars going on currently. There's so much chaos. There's so much, there's conflicts. Conflict's is a better word than wars. There's conflict with China, conflict with Russia, conflict with Syria. There's conflict internally. There's conflict with the right and the left. There's conflict with people that want to be a socialist or a capitalist. There's conflict with people, with every fucking aspect of our culture. There's these weird little struggles for dominance.
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. You want to get into that?
Yeah.
You want to? Can I use the restroom?
Yeah, go pee.
Is that sure?
Yeah. Go ahead. We'll pause. Jamie and I will talk about you. All right. We'll be right back.